Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is the afternoon of day 9 of the state versus Hannah Gutierrez. The prosecution has rested its case. The defense is into their first couple witnesses. Right before lunch, we were in the cross examination of the defense's expert witness on police investigations, essentially. I don't know if we'll see an expert witness with regard to the armor duties from the defense, but that'll probably be Thel Reed, Hannah's father, which will be real interesting if they use him as an expert armorer for what was going down on set. I'm here to see it. I wonder if they'll call Thel by the end of the day. The defense witness list wasn't super long. It had a lot of overlap from the prosecution witness list because they might call back any of the prosecution witnesses. I doubt that'll happen. So we were dealing with the defense investigator who's like, yeah, there's things that the police should have done. Yep, agreed. Like, I don't disagree with them, but the cross examination has basically been, but like the gun the police recovered was the gun Baldwin had, right? Right. And the box of ammo Hannah said she was pulling from and the one that the police recovered are the same one, though, right? Like, all these things are the same. Like, chain of custody is not an issue. And then before that witness, they had the OSHA investigators, which were like, yeah, the set wasn't safe. The employers, Rust Productions, didn't maintain a safe set. And I think we will see the defense arguing in their closing arguments that Hannah couldn't have been negligent in her duties because the set was so bad. Or at least that makes logical sense to argue, hey, she can't be prosecuted or convicted of involuntary manslaughter on a lawful duty theory, that she was lawfully doing her duty and she was just really negligent in doing her job because the set was so bad. But the other theory is reckless use of a firearm and was not checking the firearm thoroughly. Reckless use of a firearm, maybe. And if it is, then they get the involuntary manslaughter with the unlawful act, negligent use of a firearm. I called it reckless, but negligent use of a firearm, which is what Dave Hall's pled to. So I wonder if the reason the prosecution was asking Dave Hall's what he pled to was to insinuate that that's what the jury should find for Hannah. So with all of that, court's not back yet. We're going to get to your questions, your comments, and have a chitty chat until court gets back. They were supposed to be back 15 minutes ago, and we can only push out so long. I just wanted to chat with y'all. So here we are. Ellie said, I caught up on what I missed this morning. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. Defense started with Flair, but totally fizzled after the attorney quit. I want to know what happened. So do I. I really want to know what happened with Bouillon quitting. Dawn in YO said, thanks for keeping me occupied on my 12-hour drive. Dawn, we've got a lot to chat about this 12-hour drive. Drive safe. We're just going to be here chatting in your ear this entire time till court gets back. Jennifer said, check the court docs. I did. I don't see anything with regard to how the hearings this morning resumed. I see nothing. I don't see a minute order. There is nothing yet. But when there are court things, but nothing we haven't covered and nothing giving us an indication this morning. Let's see what else. We're gonna get to your questions, and that's all. Taylor said, what product and colors do you always use on your lips? The colors are gorgeous. It depends on the day. I use the EDB Gerard Cosmetics collab, and recently I have been using the Lawless Forget the Filler in Velvet. I really like it as well. So those are the two that I use the most. And then I don't even know where it is. I don't know where my actual like chapstick went, but I use that a lot too. It's missing my actual lip gloss, not lip gloss, chapstick is absolutely missing. The Laneige is somewhere. So in Gummy Bear, I really like that one too. Jenna said everyone's saying it was her job. Perhaps she lied on her resume and never had any real idea of what the job involved. But yes, Jenna, that is a possibility. But then still reckless in doing her job. So I don't think she lied on her resume. I think her training was my dad and Seth Kinney told me how to do this job, which is why she's in those text messages to Seth Kinney saying, you guys never told me this. You guys blow. And I understand the you guys blow sentiment. Like, you're supposed to be mentoring me in how to do this job. And this really seems that becoming a movie armor is like an apprenticeship position. Like, see one, teach one, do one, or see one, do one, teach one, where they're all just kind of giving guidance and like, okay, now go. It doesn't seem to be as formalized as it was. Alan said, question, was there a motion to dismiss? There must have been a motion to dismiss. We just don't know. And I reached out to the court liaison yesterday, and it was confirmed again. I knew this would be the answer, but you got to try sometimes. I reached out to the court liaison, and it was confirmed again that unless the jury is in the room, nothing is on camera. So we do not see the motions outside the presence of the jury, which we've seen in most other cases that have been covered. While I understand why a judge would want to do this, in case a jury ever wandered across court coverage, unless it was like me talking about court, if they just wandered across the court TV stream, all they would see is what they've already seen in court and the lawyers walking back and forth. They wouldn't see the argument on these motions. So I can understand the theory behind it, but it's frustrating. I really wanted to see those motions and what the judge ruled. So there is that. I also saw a number of you asking if I found my luggage. My luggage has been returned to me. It was not lost per se. It just didn't run as fast as I did in Atlanta yesterday to make my connecting flight. So let's see. There's a Twitter thread of what happened this morning. Serenity V. I'm not sure who's covering it, but if you put the name in the mods, I'll grab it and I can go look because I'm happy to go look. The motion was just denied this morning per Court TV. I can go look at Court TV's Twitter real quick because Court TV said the motion was denied. I mean, the problem is, and I really quite like Court TV. I like a lot of the anchors on Court TV. I've enjoyed being on Court TV. The problem is there are times that Court TV will be like, Ruby Frankie sentenced to 4 to 60 years. And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not what we're doing. Let's see. Here it is from Court TV this morning. Breaking, Judge Sommer denies motions for directed verdicts in New Mexico, which is a motion to dismiss. The judge found there is direct evidence for the charges of involuntary manslaughter. Both sides are going over jury instructions. Okay, Court TV, excuse me. That doesn't address the jury, the evidence tampering, though. Like, what about the evidence tampering? So that only addresses a part. We've got more questions than that. That only addresses a part of it. So this is Court TV's reporting from this morning, but that doesn't address all of it. So let's see if there was a reporter live tweeting. Miguel and I see the Court TV one. Thank you. I don't know if there was a reporter in court tweeting it out, but from the Court TV coverage, that doesn't say anything about the tampering and whether or not there was a directed verdict on the tampering. So let me see if there's any other or further information. But I will say from the Court TV Twitter feed, Julie Janae says cross-examination of rust ammo supplier Seth Kinney should have been more explosive if the defense had done it right. Does anyone disagree with that reporting? Does anyone disagree with that reporting? Iona, wait, where'd it go? The chat jumped because there's 10,000 of us in here. Iona said, what does directed verdict mean? A directed verdict and a motion to dismiss, I will use synonymously. It's the defense's motion at the end of the prosecution's close, at the end of the prosecution's evidence. The prosecution closes evidence and the defense says, Your Honor, with all of the evidence that we have seen now that the defense has rested their, or now that the prosecution has rested their case, there is not enough evidence for a jury to find a guilty verdict on this charge or that charge. It's very rare that they are granted, but sometimes they are. And when we're looking at the charge of tampering with evidence, is there enough evidence that there's evidence that Hannah Gutierrez handed a baggie to someone that may or may not have been cocaine, though I don't think her defense attorney helped when he was like, could have been meth. And she's like, could have been meth. So could have been illicit drugs, could have been illegal narcotics, handed it to someone, could have been illegal narcotics, and that person threw it in the trash. But we will look at the elements together probably tomorrow and see. Um so let's see if Court TV has anything else to say. Cross-examination of Russ should have been more explosive. Agreed. It wasn't. Um the state rested. Yep. Rust's management team was responsible. That's what OSHA said. The judge ruled there is enough circumstantial and direct evidence exists for the case against Hannah Gutierrez to move forward to jury. I mean, I guess they have to be including the tampering charge because otherwise they would have said the tampering charge was dismissed. So I don't know. Witness after witness called. Yes. Judge Sommer denies motions for directed verdicts. The judge found there's direct evidence. There is direct evidence for the charges of involuntary manslaughter, and both sides are going over jury instructions. But I really wish somebody would specifically address the tampering charge because the tampering charge is not great. All right. It looks like that's all we got. The Bees Megapint said, I loved how you said it could have been meth. Like that was an improvement. The defense was like, you don't know what drugs it was. You don't know what it was. You don't know. It could have been anything. It could have been meth. Like it could have been anything. It could have been meth is not helpful when your client is being charged with tampering with illegal narcotics or the evidence being the illegal narcotics. I think if it was dismissed, they would have said, I have to hope. Be Kind and Love said, why wasn't Sarah charged with tampering considering she threw evidence away before police got there? This, again, since court is not back yet, we're going to hit the speculation bell. Where is it? Speculation tingles. Here's what I think. Is that because the dummies that Sarah Zachary threw away were from Jensen Ackles' gun and the other actors' guns on their props, I don't think the state considered them to be evidence of anything because those weapons were not involved in anything nefarious. I could argue that those weapons could have been misloaded, but I think those were also weapons that Sarah loaded, not Hannah. So those weren't the weapons at issue. And I think the argument is because they weren't the weapons at issue, therefore it is not tampering with evidence. This court is almost a half an hour late right now. So we're going to keep answering your questions. Let's see. I'm going to shift my screen around a little bit so it's easier for me because we're still here and I have court on. Let me make sure I have the volume on so we can hear it. We're just going to keep an eye on court and go from there. So that's why I think that Sarah Zachary wasn't charged with it. Let's see. Question. Do you think it was looked at it as an all or nothing, either both charges dismissed or not at all? Emily, the judge should evaluate them separately. There's different evidence to the different charges. So no. Let's see. Question. Does it actually matter what the powder was? Hannah gave it to the lady to keep it away from the cops. Isn't that evidence tampering, even if it's not coke? Sleepy vapor. I think that's a really good argument. I now need to know if you're an anesthesiologist, but I think it's a really good argument. And that's probably what the state's going to argue. Whatever Hannah was giving her, it was to keep it away from the cops, or at least theoretically to keep it away from the cops and get it back later. I still don't like the charge. I don't think it's definitely not tampering with evidence from the set of Rust, but it's getting rid of something so she won't be prosecuted. But they never tied it into whether she had it earlier in the day or not, which the prosecution did argue to the judge they were going to do. Sarah said, why are they always late? I don't know. I'm also always late. So I don't know. They're probably doing and or discussing things. A juror could be late from lunch. We'll see. Do you know if Lane Looper camera guy who walked off will be called to testify? I'm surprised the state didn't call Lane Looper to testify. I don't think the defense will. So what is the basis for the tampering? The drugs. Yeah, that's the basis. Could the tampering charge stem from her dumping different boxes into her fanny pack? Nope, because that was before the incident happened. Tampering would need to be after the incident happened. It could have been ass powder. Yes, D, it could have been baby powder. Who knows what it is? So Prunkle of the Bailey defense. Maybe it was flour to bake the world's tiniest cake. Oh, Lord. Agent Rod said, considering their unique styles, it possible the defense didn't move for directed verdict on the tampering charges. No, because you would move for a directed verdict on all of the charges. So is Court TV like TMZ with their reporting sometimes? Sometimes they're not as specific as I would like them to be, but that's just because I need the information. Let's see. Page never refreshed when EDB came online. Been sitting here for an extra 15 minutes. Oh no, that happens sometimes. Carmine Murray said your input is invaluable to me. Thanks, Em. You are welcome. Court, I was ready to like be in court. I've got cheese sticks I wanted to eat. Like, I didn't want this to be a mukbang. Could we just go back to court, please? Can we just go back to court? Do we know who Baldwin's lawyers are? Not off the top of my head, but yes, I have the filings. Baldwin has a very experienced team of attorneys, and some of them, or at least one of them, is in court. Does Alex's lawyer get paid to sit in court every day during the trial? Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Does that mean the jury will be deliberating today? No, we're definitely not getting to closing arguments today. It's going to depend how many witnesses the defense has left. They anticipate getting to closing Thursday morning. Wait, so I didn't miss anything? Michelle, not really. Like, not really. This cross this afternoon might be interesting, but no, you didn't really miss much. Could have been Bisquick for emergency biscuits. I mean, emergency biscuits are a good thing, but I don't think it was a big enough, 4 sugar packets worth of powdery substance is not enough for emergency biscuits, I do not think. Question, why did the Law Nerd app notifications not come until 15, 20 minutes after a live stream is supposed to start? It depends sometimes on your phone carrier, but often they go out about 15, 20 minutes before we start or right as we start. Is Lane Looper a witness only to set safety, not a percipient witness to the case? Rachel said, I feel bad for Sarah more than Hannah. Daniel M said, I'm here for the you guys blow of it all. I mean, that's kind of where we're at with this whole case, isn't it? Like, you guys blow. Dana Griffin, NBC, live tweeted the motion to dismiss. Let me go look at that. Court's not back, so let's go look at that and see if I can find it. Let's see. I don't use this app very much anymore, so let's see if I can find the handle. I will find the handle. Let's see. Nope. That's not going well. I didn't spell any of those things wrong, but it is not showing me people. No, it is not showing me that handle, which is unfortunate. I am looking for it. Let me try it with no spaces. And if I can't find it, I will find it later. And then we will go through it, but I do not see it. Thank you, Amber. I did not see it. Sarah also had a cooperation agreement in exchange for her testimony. True, she did. Creation by Kutsin. Question, am I understanding correctly that they are only prosecuting for Helena and not for Joel getting shot? If so, why, and can they later charge for his injuries? No, they are not going to charge later for Joel. Yes, they are prosecuting the involuntary manslaughter for Helena. The law gets very hard with the like non-intended assault. There isn't really, because they are charging this as involuntary, they are charging it as somebody who was doing their job badly. Like, you were doing something that you're lawfully allowed to do, but you did it negligently. And I covered that in the Emily Show podcast, getting ready for this trial, if you want my breakdown of the theories of involuntary manslaughter. But there isn't really a clean, like, attempted assault here, because there's no volition and there's not really an accidental assault charge that would cover his injuries. I mean, maybe a negligent discharge of a firearm. I would need to look in New Mexico as to Baldwin, like negligent discharge of a firearm with injury, maybe as to Baldwin, but not as to Hannah. So when it's assault, it becomes a little more difficult than the involuntary manslaughter, which is essentially you were doing something that you're lawfully allowed to do, but you did it in such a reckless way that someone died. That doesn't carry over to assault. Annoy Moose said, will Baldwin's lawyer eat Carrie for lunch? I don't know if I don't know Carrie Morrissey, the prosecutor or the special prosecutor here at all, other than watching this trial. but either she will shift tactics because of the different opposing counsel, or they will hold her feet to the fire on it. Lee said, if the powder was a legal substance, then why pass it off? And that is the circumstantial evidence. Do you package, protein powder in that way? Do you package anything in that way and hand it off and try to get it back? It's the trying to get it back that I think is the strong circumstantial evidence there. Like, hey, do you have my stuff? If it's not of value, why try to get it back? And that's a very strong argument. So, but I think the prosecution really wanted to hear Hannah Gutierrez's name associated with cocaine, associated with the day of this shooting, for sure. Thank you, Miguelina, for finding it. Miguelina found the thread for me. My searching did not pull it up. So thank you, Miguelina. You're the bomb. And thank you to the moderators that undoubtedly helped yield that result. So let us go to this real quick. Let me do that and see if we can zhuzh this a little bit bigger. No, it will not. It will not embiggen. I don't need this entire page of Twitter. Hold on, chat. We're going to reassess so I can read it without having to change my glasses like a prosecutor. Well, particularly like this prosecutor. Let's see. Embiggen. So we can read. Dana Griffin at Dana Griffin NBC. I searched literally for this handle and it did not come up, which is real annoying, but that's okay. Day 10 of the Russ manslaughter trial. Judge is hearing the defense motion and going over jury questions. So the jury has had questions. Defense moves for directed verdict over lack of evidence. Defense state has failed to prove that Hannah Gutierrez Reed brought live ammo on set and did it with a willful disregard. I mean, she loaded it, so I think there's an argument there. State argues Hannah Gutierrez said herself that she loaded the gun. Hannah Gutierrez told detective that it was her job to check and make sure, in fact, the dummy rounds were dummy rounds. She understood what her duties were. She failed her duties. Carrie Morrissey said, agreed. I agreed. Morrissey, she had the 6 dummy rounds float around on the set for 12 days. Ms. Hutchins died because of a combination of factors. Hannah Gutierrez brought live rounds. She loaded a live round. She didn't do a full and thorough check with the first AD. Judge denies motion for directed verdicts on all counts. There we go with some very helpful reporting. Yay. Helpful reporting. That's absolutely fantastic. Oh, it sounds like court's getting ready to come back. Okay, good. We're going to finish this up as court's coming back. So judge denies motion for directed verdict on all counts. Court finds evidence supports count 1 and tampering with evidence. Okay. Judge thinks there's circumstantial evidence, testimony, and text messages are telling. I mean, the text messages trying to get the stuff back is interesting. On jury instructions, judge denies defense objection to the language.
All right, you may be seated.
And the language stands. I'm pausing court real quick. Jury instruction 2, negligent use of a deadly weapon. Defense requests the word negligent be changed to reckless. No, that would change the legal standard. Defense, we agree that Mr. Lewis proposed. Judge, negligent use of a deadly weapon should be defined in the jury instructions. Prosecution wants to look into it. I'm going to go back through this when we get a break. I think this is very, very helpful. Hannah has left court. Note, her father, Thel Reed, is in the hallway. He could be called as a defense witness. Courtroom is chatty. It would be very, very interesting to me if we get Hannah's father as a witness this afternoon. It is very possible that we do get Hannah's father as a witness this afternoon. And that's a huge thank you to the in-court reporter, Dana Griffin with NBC on that. All right. Chat, I don't even think I rolled. Did I roll the intro? Anybody? Do we know? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we're going to court. It'll be fine either way. It'll be fine either way. I didn't roll the intro. Let's roll it now. Let's just do it. Let's go to court, y'all.
Hey there. I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it.
We are back in court. The witness is back on the stand. The court is focused on the defendant putting her purse away.
Just back up for
for a brief moment, and I want to go back to.
And the prosecutor is going to
any
back up for a
concerns
moment.
You had about
That's
the projectile.
how her questioning
not
style
matching
goes.
the gun. I'm not sure that
Same witness that was on the stand this morning. Cross-examination is midway through. I'm going to put up a poll in the chat in just a second to see if we think Thel Reed will be the next witness.
that I fully understand
So I will be putting a poll in the chat real
what
quick.
your concerns
And then I'm gonna
are
eat lunch.
in that regard. Would you articulate
Talking to my
them for
kid.
us again?
Yes, I was referring to the concerns that a detective would have upon arriving at scene. You don't have at the time, the results of lab testing. So, and you have nothing guaranteed.
What do you mean nothing guaranteed?
It is life.
Well-
Nothing is guaranteed.
At the time, you had some people saying this is the gun, but you didn't have any evidence, scientific evidence, showed that was the gun, which was later found to be true. I'm just talking about you have so many variables and so many unknowns that you can only use interviews on the scene to confirm and deny things. One person saying this is the gun, that may very well be the gun, but you have to see if someone else can
I don't
verify
say
that.
blah, blah, blah.
You know, later on, you're going to have lab results, not at the time. And that's what I was referring to, is at the time, at the scene on October 21st.
Thanks,
So
Chad.
what's your concern then about the investigation that the sheriff's department did with regard to the gun? Is your testimony that after Ms. Gutierrez identified the gun to Lieutenant Benavides and handed him the gun, there should have been more follow-up with regard to whether or not that was really the gun? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because she's not the one that handed the gun to Mr. Baldwin. There are people in between that process. So
I'll answer that about Thel when we get a
Continue,
break.
sir. I apologize.
again, pieces of information come out as they're going through both processing the scene and interviewing people. And now we know that there is some time delay between the firearm being loaded, the firearm being on the cart, the firearm making it to Mr. Baldwin inside the church. And that's what I meant by the investigation at the time. A lot of information is coming out over months. Some information has come much later.
But you agree with me that Ms. Gutierrez handed Lieutenant Benavides the gun and said, "This is the gun that was being used." And when she said that,
she did do
she
that.
had been identified as the armor on the movie set.
That's
you agree
true.
with that?
I do.
And
And that's what
you
matters.
also agree that, not surprisingly, that turned out to be the gun. You agree with that?
Oh, I do, yes.
So any potential issues with regard to that specific concern of yours didn't turn out to be issues. There's no issue. You agree with that? This is the gun that fired that projectile.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're not confused about that.
When we left off, there was an objection, and I'm going to go through with you. You were talking about the ammo boxes.
Where's the beef?
I
Her
think
whole
that was where the
cross-examination is
objection
this
was.
question.
So as the investigator in this case, have you reviewed all of the body-worn camera footage?
I have. There's a lot.
So have I.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I'm sympathetic to the exhausted look on your face. I'm going to show you.
Ma'am, is there a question? I realize that the personableness is a part of it, but is there a question? Because this witness is like, I reviewed all the body cam footage, and she's like, it's a lot.
What has been marked as what is already in evidence as State's Exhibit 192. Sir,
Marvel.
have you seen this exhibit?
I have.
And you agree with me that this is Lieutenant Benavides is pointing to the box that Ms. Gutierrez identified.
This is why the photo enhancement guy came in yesterday so they can continue to use these photos because now they're proper evidence. So, and she's using it again with this witness. This is the right box, right?
As the box that she was pulling ammunition from. Do you agree with that?
He is pointing to a box of ammunition, yes.
Are you indicating that you believe that the box here in this picture was not the box that she was pulling ammunition from?
No, I'm not. There were two boxes, and I don't know if it was clearly delineated to him which of the two boxes was.
The prosecution's on
ammunition
cross-examination now, so yes.
Well,
This is
you
now
understood that the gun was
leading
loaded
questions.
with dummies or was supposed to be loaded with dummies at the time of the incident, right?
Right.
And you also understand that this was the only box of dummies on the cart. You understand that, right?
EMS
Yes.
was
The other
writing info
boxes
on their
were
hand.
blanks.
That was EMS,
Correct?
not law
Correct.
enforcement.
And Ms. Gutierrez said to Lieutenant Benavides, "This is the box I was pulling from," right?
Yes.
You don't think that Ms. Gutierrez meant to say I was pulling from a box of blanks when the gun was loaded with supposed dummies, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, Hannah said she just poured it all in her fanny pack, so I'm not really sure what we're getting at, but
State's Exhibit 62. Have you seen this photo?
I probably have hundreds of photos of white boxes.
I
But
haven't.
I can't
That
specifically say this photo.
Ooh, I have seen that photo.
does the box on the left, does that label look familiar to you
We've
in
all
your
seen it.
investigation in this case?
It
We've all
does.
seen it a lot.
So based on your investigation, do you have any reason to believe that the box that Ms. Gutierrez pointed out to Lieutenant Benavides is not this box that he took and placed in his unit?
Nope.
I do not.
No reason to believe that.
And I believe that photo is taken in the unit, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
it
Yeah,
is.
I can see the seat.
Yes, you can.
State's Exhibit 63. You understand that this is a photo of that exact same box when it was taken into evidence at the sheriff's department, right?
Yes, that's how it's labeled. Yes.
I'm not asking how it's labeled. You've reviewed the evidence at the evidence room, right?
Yes.
And you've reviewed all the photographs that were taken on scene.
Yes.
Let me ask you, isn't it true that there was only one box found with this label? Isn't that correct?
That I don't know.
The reason it's important that there was only one box found with that label is because the state's theory is that Hannah brought that box that had mixed shit in it onto set. And that box looks very different than the boxes that were recovered from PDQ Arm and Prop. So to explain to the jury, look, here are all these fucking boxes from PDQ Arm and Prop, but this box is different because this box came from Hannah, not from PDQ Arm and Prop. That's why she's going on about it more.
You're the defense investigator on this case, right?
Yes.
Have you seen photographs of a box that looks?
Ma'am, let's not get so snappy because your lead investigator was like, no, I didn't read everything. It's a big case. There's a lot of stuff in a box. Like this could bite you. It's going to go two ways.
It's like this, but is it loaded with something other than what this box was loaded with?
Sir, we'd like to talk more about the loads.
Sir, do you have any reason to believe that there were two boxes with this label that were taken into evidence?
I do not know.
So I know some of you find her grating. I understand that.
State's Exhibit 69.
This demeanor is, for me, much more appropriate for cross. This is for me, a very normal cross-examination demeanor. The demeanor is, so you're going to tell this jury all this shit and you expect them to believe you. Like that can be a demeanor for cross-examination that can work very well. It's just been her demeanor through the whole trial. So I get that some of you on day 9 are graded. Some of you are very tired, but this is with the cross examination, I find it less objectionable than I do during direct examination. But for cross, it's appropriate. For direct, it's like, why are you yelling at us? Please stop yelling at me. So I get it, guys. I get it. It's day 9. I'm tired. You're tired. These attorneys are exhausting me.
Have you seen this
I get
photo?
it. Chad, I get it. I'm also exhausted.
Again, I've seen dozens of photos.
So
Well, you're here to give an opinion about the investigation on this case. Are you not familiar with this photograph?
sir, look at
Specifically,
this
Okay,
photograph.
Did you watch
Carrie, come
the
on, give it to us.
interview in
We need it.
November that Ms. Gutierrez gave to Detective Hancock?
I did.
And do you recall during that interview, Ms. Gutierrez holds up her phone and says, "This is a picture of our dummies," meaning the dummies that she would bring on the set. Do you
Her
recall
and
that?
Thel's
I do recall
dummies.
that, yes.
Here's what I like about this cross-examination. Do you notice how she is linearly going from topic to topic to topic? This is a more well-prepared cross-examination than we have seen in some other cross-examinations. Because when he's like, I don't remember that, she is nailing him down with specifics. Well, in her interview, she said this, she showed this picture. This is a much more well-prepared cross than some of the other cross-examinations we've seen so far. And that I find to be very nice to watch.
Isn't this the photo that she showed?
And that is her job on cross to make him look evasive. A lot of the
You don't
state's
know?
witnesses
Not
looked
at this
evasive
point,
too.
no.
Okay. You weren't watching the testimony of our expert, Mr. Hawks, when he
Some of them
laid
haven't
the
been great.
foundation for this and indicated that this photograph was sent from a contact in her phone named Dad Kula to her the day before the interview with Detective Hancock. Were you not aware of that?
I was
Dad
not, no.
Kula. I'm going to do that every time, Carrie. Say Dad Kula again, and I'm going to say Dad Kula.
So, sir,
Because I cannot
based on Ms.
help myself, and I am
Gutierrez's statements, would it be her own statements to law enforcement? Would it be reasonable
lot
for
of
law
chatting going
enforcement
on at
to
defense.
believe?
There's a lot of chatting going on at defense. This is the most activity I've seen going on at defense counsel table through any of the witnesses. Like a lot of chat over there. They are
That
squirming a
State's
bit.
Exhibit 62, this box here in the foreground,
They're playing a game of
is
telephone
indeed
is
the
what
box
they're
she
doing.
was pulling from
Get a
because she
Post-it.
said that. Wouldn't that be reasonable for law enforcement to believe that?
Yes, it would.
Like, get a Post-it,
And you understand
a
that
notepad.
that box was determined to have a live round.
Yes.
I'm going to back that up real quick. That was a really good question.
For law enforcement to believe that?
Yes, it would.
And you understand that that box was determined to have a live round.
Yes.
The box that doesn't look like any other boxes, the box that Hannah said she was pulling things from, the box that Hannah said is one of our boxes, is the box that was determined to have a live round. She walked all of those questions through, though I was making jokes over it because I am tired. She walked all those questions through in order. So the box she had that she told law enforcement she was pulling from, that she said is one of ours, meaning her and her dad's, is the box that was determined to have a live round. That, right? So she walked it all the way through to get him to admit, yes, this is the box that had the live round.
And you agree with me that that box that had the live round matches this photo that was shown to Detective Hancock during the November 9th interview. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
And the significance
Sir,
is
do
that
you
box
still
did
have
not come from
questions and
PDQ Arm and
concerns
Prop.
about how the live rounds got on set?
I do.
You
Well-
don't think that
And you still note it. this is proper cross-examination, and I'm enjoying this quite a bit. Sir, you still have a question about how live rounds just got on set? I just told you how these live rounds got on set, sir. How are you confused by this? And she's looking at the jury with indignation, like, how are you confused? It's so clear. This doesn't feel right on direct examination, but it feels right on cross-examination. Ugh. We all get it. How do you not get it? You're the expert, supposedly. That is exactly what her attitude and her facial expressions are telling this jury. It's clear as day to all of us.
You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Sir, do you still have questions and concerns about how the live rounds got on set?
I do.
You don't think that law enforcement can simply take Ms. Gutierrez's word for it, that this is her box and this is the one she was pulling from and this is the one where live rounds were found?
Yes, but what we don't know is how many times.
That was all compound. She's now tying it together for the jury and cross, and the defense table is just sitting there silently and letting it happen. It's all happening.
Those boxes were unloaded and reloaded. Every time that one of the firearms were loaded with dummy rounds,
And he's trying to
they
fix
came
it.
out of a box. They didn't necessarily go back into the same box.
Do you agree with me,
And now
sir,
he's giving her the
that
face.
there are certain things in homicide investigations that just simply can't be controlled for? You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. It's a well-organized cross.
Sir, what's the smallest police department you've ever worked for?
Albuquerque PD.
You agree with me that the Albuquerque Police Department is approximately 10 times the size of the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department with regard to the number of commissioned officers?
I am. I think Albuquerque is around 850, and I think Santa Fe's 120, 130, something like that.
Okay. More than 8 times.
Right.
You agree with that math?
I do.
Why are y'all trying to math? You're a lawyer and a cop. None of y'all can math. Stop trying to math in live court.
Have you ever worked on a homicide investigation on a movie set?
I have not.
I was waiting for that question.
Do you agree with me that normally in homicide investigations, police aren't concerned with where the live ammo came from?
Right.
This case is unique in that regard, isn't it?
This case is unique from the beginning, yes.
It's fair.
Okay, it is,
Yes.
right? It's
Mhm.
unique from the beginning.
Most homicides, they
so-
just know that a gun was used.
Police officers,
Trying to
you
figure
would
out who did
agree,
it.
are not trained in how to investigate homicides on movie sets where they're not supposed to have live rounds, they're supposed to have fake rounds. Cops aren't trained in that, right?
Specifically, no.
Okay.
Adventures
And
with EJ in the chat
you
said, I
agree-
was working on 1883 at this time. I do not believe the ammo was checked from 1883. I don't believe Seth from PDQ checked it, and no one is asking. Adventures with EJ, I'm glad that set was safe. You must be horrified by what's going on with this set. And I don't know if it was checked. It got all mixed up. Okay, Christina, you are the exception to the rule, and I appreciate you. Christina's like, I'm former LEO and I can math. Not all law enforcement can math, but all lawyers can math. I
Agree
stand
with
by
me,
that
don't
generalization.
you, that Lieutenant Benavides can't just let Ms. Gutierrez walk around the movie set with a firearm that appears to have just shot 2 people. You agree with that?
Oh, I do agree with that with reference to firearm, yes.
Yeah. It was incumbent on Lieutenant Benavides to remove that firearm from her possession, correct?
From anyone's possession, yes.
Shouldn't they have
And
checked your
you just take
pockets?
issue with the fact that he didn't put a glove on before he did it.
Basically, yes.
But you agree that the fact that he didn't put a glove on didn't turn out to create any significant evidentiary issues in this case because everybody knew who was holding the gun and everybody knew who shot the gun. You agree with that?
I do.
I do. I agree. I'm having Cheez-Its in case you're asking. I agree with that. It didn't.
And-
The fact that he didn't have a glove on didn't diminish any evidence because everybody knew that the gun was in Baldwin's hand and in Hannah's before that.
Sir, you also agree with me, don't you, that a police officer's first responsibility is to save human lives, not collect evidence?
Correct, as I stated, yes.
And do you recall that Ms. Gutierrez was actually checked by EMTs when she was sitting in the back of Lieutenant Benavidez's patrol unit?
Yes, I did see that.
And you agree that she was allowed to make phone calls?
Yes, she was.
I think you indicated that you talked a little bit about that Detective Hancock sort of took possession of Ms. Gutierrez. Do you recall the statement that you made in that regard?
I do.
So I want to ask you, and one of the examples you gave was that Detective Hancock even accompanied Ms. Gutierrez to the restroom, right?
Yes, she did.
But in watching the body-worn camera footage, isn't it true that Sergeant Christopher Zook tells Detective Hancock, she doesn't want to go to the bathroom alone. Will you take her to the bathroom?
That's what I said.
Ms. Gutierrez actually asks to be accompanied to the bathroom. Do you recall that?
I do.
And yet you presented it as if she was not free to leave. So did you?
And do you agree
misstate
with
that
me
to
that
the
it
lawyer-
was
to the
Ms.
jury?
Gutierrez who asked to be placed in Detective Hancock's patrol unit? That wasn't something that the police just unilaterally did with her.
Correct.
So she did. She did ask.
She didn't want everyone looking at her.
Is there a problem with them granting her request that she be accompanied to the bathroom?
No, but I didn't think that included going into the bathroom with her.
Okay. If they were worried for her personal safety.
Can I elaborate?
Sure.
I believe she stated something along the lines of she didn't want to talk to anyone from production. So it's kind of like if she was with Detective Hancock, she wouldn't be approached by any of her coworkers.
Hannah knew people were pissed
I
at
think
her because
that was
they'd
her
already been
intention of being
screaming at
escorted.
her.
But I didn't think it included going into the bathroom itself.
Well, she went into the bathroom and she had her back turned to Ms. Gutierrez. What's the big deal? Ms. Gutierrez asked for an escort. How did that hurt the investigation?
It didn't. Hannah
Hurt the
made a lot of.
Yeah.
It did not.
It did not. Hannah made a bunch of incriminating statements during that, so it did not hurt the investigation. That actually really helped the investigation, I think. And he's going to say it did not.
What's the big deal? Ms. Gutierrez asked for an escort. How did that hurt the investigation?
Hurt the investigation?
Yeah.
It did not.
Then why'd you bring it up? Then why'd you bring it up? Then why did you bring it up? Please ask.
Now, Ms. Gutierrez stayed on set and she was sitting in a police car with the door open.
Isn't it more fun to watch a cross when they like follow up with the receipts? Isn't that just the flow just feels better?
And there was a coworker of hers sitting in there visiting with her. You agree with that?
Yes, I do.
And she had her phone. You agree with that?
Yes,
She was allowed to make phone calls.
yes,
She was never placed in handcuffs. You agree with that?
correct.
Yes, not bad for the
So-
investigation, just bad for Hannah. I agree.
What's problematic about that? How was she mistreated by police?
I didn't say she was mistreated. It was every appearance of not being free to leave. I based that on the fact that when Lieutenant Benavidez would step away from his vehicle, he would tell a deputy to keep an eye on her. If she's free to leave and she's just sitting in the back of the unit with an open door, she should be allowed to walk away if she wanted to. It gives the impression that she is in custody when you're not.
Dude, she didn't want to walk away. She didn't want anyone on set screaming at her. She asked to be further away from where her coworkers could stare her down.
Free from constant observation from law enforcement.
Well, but isn't it true that she seemed to be having a panic attack, and it was appropriate for Lieutenant Benavides, when he walked away, to ask another officer to keep an eye on her, to make sure she's okay? Isn't that true?
At that time, she appeared fine.
He did say to EMTs, I don't want her to hyperventilate and pass out.
Did she? Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
At what time did she seem okay? Let's play the video.
So
Let's take this cross forever. I love this. Let's
was
just,
it your
Play
expectation
the
that
video.
Mr. Baldwin should have been detained?
it would be getting into the weeds though.
Do you believe that they should have detained him?
I do.
I do.
And do you believe that they should have put him in a police car and taken his phone away?
I mean, I do.
Not necessarily
Not
placed
taking
in a
his
police
phone.
car, but he should have been segregated from the other witnesses, and his phone should have been taken to preserve evidence.
I don't
Don't
think
you
they had
agree with
authority
me
to do
that there
that.
has to be probable cause that there may be evidence on the phone before the phone can be taken?
Yes. Yes,
But
there
they wouldn't know
does.
if there was going to be evidence on the phone without interviewing him.
Sir, how do you
There's no
establish?
other way to know whether there was evidence on that phone or not. But he was on the phone when law enforcement arrived. So who was he talking to?
How do you establish probable
Well-
cause, sir?
Did you look at his call logs?
Sir?
That's after the fact.
Sir.
I'm talking about when deputies arrived at the scene.
Okay.
Where's the
I
probable
appreciate
cause?
that. But what I'm trying to figure out is, what about your concerns actually turned out to be real issues with the investigation? What evidence
A great
was
question.
missing or hidden by Mr. Baldwin? What evidence do you have?
We don't have the full contents of his phone.
Has the defense filed any kind of a motion in this case to try to get the full contents of his phone?
That I don't know.
And you understand, though, that a full extraction of Mr. Baldwin's phone was done in New York, but we were given a limited report. You understand that?
Because Baldwin's lawyers put some parameters on it when Hannah's lawyers didn't. Because Baldwin's lawyers lawyered. Annoying as it is, they were doing their job.
Yes, I do.
And you also understand that originally the same thing happened with Ms. Gutierrez. A limited report was generated from a full extraction, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
She's
And you
nailing
agree with
down
me that
everything
defense
he said.
counsel is free to issue subpoenas and file motions to compel and do all of those things in a case if they feel that they're missing evidence.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
For all of you asking, isn't that leading though? Yes, this is cross-examination. This is where she's allowed to lead all day long. She can all the things. And she seems much more comfortable in cross than direct and is perfectly happy leading all day long. It's linear. It brings receipts. It seems planned. We're happy with this cross-examination. I love a good cross-examination. I just hoped we had seen more of them. But yes, she's allowed to lead on cross.
So do you think that it would have been appropriate then for law enforcement to take Ms. Gutierrez's phone away from her and not let her make a phone call to her mother?
That can be monitored
It's a
also.
great question.
I've seen it done both ways. I've seen them taken away where they're not allowed to make any phone calls.
Sir, you didn't answer
And
the
I've also
question.
seen where they've been able to make a call in the presence of law
You
enforcement.
didn't answer the question though. Sir,
Sir, generally, in your experience as a law enforcement
explain the
officer,
Fourth Amendment to us, sir.
do you usually continue to investigate an individual for a crime after you have, let's say for months, after you have been unable to develop a single lead that that person was involved? Do you need me to rephrase that question?
I think I understand your question. You're saying, do you continue an investigation of someone that you have no information?
I have a very clear double standard. I like cross-examination more because it's really fiery and it can get feisty and it's much more interesting to watch. I am very biased towards a good cross-examination. I was hoping for lots of them in this case. So that makes this one look good by the fact that the other ones kind of weren't good.
To
Yeah,
believe
right.
they
You
committed a crime.
looked, you executed a search warrant, you interviewed the person numerous times,
Oh, that's
and
true.
you just simply don't have any evidence that they were involved. At some point, don't they just not become a suspect
That is
anymore?
compound AF. Is no one going to object? Like that wasn't even a question. That wasn't, ma'am, was there a question?
You're saying, do you continue an investigation of someone that you have no information?
Yeah,
believe
right.
they
You
committed a crime?
looked, you executed a search warrant, you interviewed the person numerous times, and you just simply don't have any evidence that they were involved. At some point, don't they just not become a suspect anymore?
I don't know if that's the correct phrase, but
Well,
your investigation is over. You've taken the investigation as far as you can go.
Right.
Right.
So at some point with Mr. Kinney, they executed a search warrant, they interviewed him numerous times.
Are you going to try to, she's going to try to defend Mr. Kinney right now. Okay. I'm going to just watch the chat turn on her in real time.
And they didn't come up with anything. So what do you think they should have done to continue?
It's a great question.
At that point, there wasn't much further they could go.
Oh,
And,
damn.
Sir, are you aware?
That, I'm going to back that up. That is when your expert has been roasted. Look at him looking at the jury to see if the jury has realized that he has been roasted. Roasted over Seth Kinney because his answer was there wasn't much more they could do. There wasn't the defense expert in police investigations just said there's nothing else that law enforcement could do with regard to Seth Kinney. Woof! That undercuts all of his testimony. We're going to back it up and watch him get roasted one more time because I think of all the cross-examinations we've watched, this one has had the most bite where there's nothing else that could have been done with regard to Seth Kinney. And Seth Kinney is who the defense wants to point out and be like, this dude sucked. And I think a lot of us in the chat aren't so far off of this dude sucked. And now this defense expert has just closed the door on Seth Kinney being the problem. This is the defense's expert closing the door on Seth Kinney being the one to take the blame.
At some point, don't they just not become a suspect? And just, let's say, for months after you have been unable to develop a single lead that that person was involved. Do you need me to rephrase that question?
It is condescending.
I think I understand your question. You're saying, do you continue an investigation of someone that you have no information?
Yeah, right. You looked, you executed a search warrant, you interviewed the person numerous times, and you just simply don't have any evidence that they were involved. At some point, don't they just not become a suspect anymore?
I don't know if that's the correct phrase, but your investigation is over. You've taken the investigation as far as you can go.
Right.
Right.
So at some point with Mr. Kinney, they executed a search warrant, they interviewed him numerous times, and they didn't come up with anything. So what do you think they should have done to continue?
At that point, there wasn't much further they could go.
And sir, are you aware that the FBI will not do DNA testing on rounds, whether they're spent or unspent? Were you aware of that?
I heard about it in this case, but they have done DNA testing on casings, unspent casings.
Well, weren't you present? Were you present for a pretrial interview of the DNA expert in this case?
I was.
And you heard her during the interview state that they won't do this kind of DNA testing, correct?
I did.
All right.
All right. Very good cross-examination. And the jury might find her off-putting. They might not. It depends how much they like this witness. But they just used this defense witness to mic drop on law enforcement could do nothing else with Seth Kinney. They made Seth Kinney better with the defense expert, which is never something you, as the defense, want to have happen when your witness gets turned and used against you. It happens to the state a lot because the state normally brings the majority of the witnesses. But the defense expert just got used against them to shut the door on Seth Kinney.
And you agree with me, sir, that police officers, when they arrived on scene, they knew immediately who the shooter was.
Sorry, Nightbot gets feisty. Peter, I'm sorry.
I think that information arrived shortly
It's a
after
bot.
the first deputies arrived, but it was before the
Thanks,
lieutenant
Ann.
arrived. There's a little lag there, but
And-
not much time at all.
Okay, and Mr. Baldwin didn't
little
leave the
lag.
scene, did he?
He did not.
I don't like that Baldwin was wandering around on his phone either. I really don't. I really don't.
You testified on direct examination that there was a person who left the scene that was never identified. Do you recall making that statement?
I did, and that was based on what came out of some of the interviews. I don't quite recall. I think the lieutenant asked if we had everybody. And
What lieutenant are you talking
Lieutenant
about?
Benavides.
Okay.
And one of the deputies responded with one left. And I think he asked who that was, and the deputy didn't know.
But you know, don't you? Because you interviewed him and you asked him. Didn't you interview Reed Russell? And when you interviewed Reed Russell, he told you that he left so that he could go to the hospital to be with his close friends. And before he left, he gave all of his contact information
There's just no objection at all.
to the police. You interviewed him. Do you recall that?
I did.
Do you need to see a copy of the interview?
I don't.
And you also understand that Mr. Russell,
I feel like this prosecutor also would have roasted her own lead detective were she on the other side. But this is the most roasted anyone has been on a cross-examination yet. And that is a huge part of our court system, is what happens to witnesses on cross. But there's just no objections. Why is she so condescending? First of all, her tone this whole trial has kind of been that way. However, on cross-examination, it can be a tactic to show the jury that this witness is not worth their time. Like it can be a tactic, though it is also her general tone most of the time. So
who left the scene to
It is
go to
what
the
it is.
hospital, was interviewed the very
she's
next
definitely-
day by
she's
Detective
definitely
Connell.
doing her
Aren't you
job.
aware of that?
I am, yes.
So what's
So-
the mystery? Who's the mystery man that left the set?
great question.
He was identified,
No,
right?
stop. Let the silence be awkward. Carrie, I really like this cross. Let the silence be awkward. Let the jury see that he has no answer for it and make him answer. Don't fill in the uncomfortable silence. Make him sit there until he answers and say, "Do you need me to ask again?" Let him sit.
Correct?
Mr. Russell was identified, but I was never quite clear if it was the same individual.
Even though you asked him and he said, "I'm the guy that left the set to go to the hospital"?
Yes, but did he know he was the only one who left?
All right.
You know,
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
The witness is laughing because I think he realized she started kind of laughing. And I think he realized his answer was kind of ridiculous. Or at least that's how I read that. He just kind of giggled.
I'll pass the witness.
Huh.
Redirect.
Thank you, Honor. Mr. Elliott, you're aware from all your experience in law enforcement that it is the government's burden to prove in any criminal case, correct? And that burden never shifts to the defendant.
that's correct, yes.
So
Objection outside the scope of cross. Sir, you're aware in a criminal proceeding that it's the state's burden. Your expert, sir, just got roasted. I'm going to need you to bring a little fire after Bulls, a little bit of fire to try to clean that up, sir.
when you were asked earlier about why the defense didn't file
cleansing
motions
hellfire.
and do subpoenas, isn't that law enforcement and the government's job to prove their case?
Objection.
There's the objection. It is asked and answered. It is also outside the scope of cross. This is why I like being a little bit on
It's the
delay.
government's burden.
I do.
Mr. Elliott, do you recall that question?
I would
I do.
never. I would
Okay,
never
and
be able
Is
to.
it always the government's burden to prove their case, to prove in a criminal case?
It is.
Okay. Now, if law enforcement doesn't timely and appropriately obtain evidence, does that sometimes impact an entire investigation?
It can.
For example, in your experience as a homicide detective and working in civilian and military law enforcement, if you delay a search warrant for a month, can that materially impact a case?
It can.
And in your experience, have you seen times when there's been that kind of delay where evidence goes missing?
I have.
But what
You
went
talked
missing?
earlier about the FBI and other cases you had been aware of where they had obtained DNA. You did not expand on that. Have you been aware of other cases in which the FBI has searched for DNA on casings?
Bulls, we're
The Las
speeding you
Vegas
up,
shooting.
sir.
So
They're
based on
talking
that
about the
answer,
Route
is it your
91
understanding
case.
they do have the capacity, the ability to do that?
They do have the ability, yes.
I believe the FBI witness, to the best of my memory, also explained when they choose to do that and when they choose not to do that. And it is very unusual for them to choose to do DNA testing on rounds and fingerprints on rounds, and explained all of that. And the defense
Earlier,
is
you
like,
were asked a series of questions about, I'm going to care to
also, Hannah said she loaded the gun. So the FBI is going to be like, what we're not going to do is do all this testing. She said she loaded it.
categorize them as no harm, no foul. In other words, we know in hindsight now that certain things didn't happen. But in any case, homicide investigation, would you always want to start out assuming that anything can go wrong and to properly preserve that evidence?
Yes, of course.
For example, with regard to the firearm, when you testified about Lieutenant Benavides touching that firearm, would there be scenarios, not like it played out here, but where somebody else turned out to be the shooter, for example, and that firearm, it was important to know the fingerprints?
Sir,
Well,
that's
of course.
not the case
This
here.
investigation started with a 911 call. They are not always accurate.
And so I guess my question to you is, in your experience and your training and 13 years as homicide, were you taught and trained to preserve evidence and to take those appropriate steps in every single case?
Yes,
We were asked earlier a series of questions about Ms. Gutierrez Reed and whether she was there voluntarily or the appearance of being detained. Did the sheriffs drive Ms. Gutierrez Reed to the sheriff's office?
yes, they did.
Did they drive Mr. Baldwin to the sheriff's office?
No, he drove himself and followed a deputy.
Was she in a position to drive herself? Did she even have a car on set?
From the time that Ms. Gutierrez Reed was in the vehicle on the set to the time of the interview, did you ever notice any period of time when she was not in law enforcement presence?
I did not.
With regard to the questions about items and boxes on the prop cart that you were asked, the 2 boxes, is it clear to you from reading the reports, everything that you reviewed in this case, what items Sarah and the other 2 individuals may have removed from the prop cart and taken to the prop truck?
No, it is not clear to me.
And based on your entire review of the whole case, has there ever been any follow-up or any information you've received that would have clarified that, what they took from the prop cart?
No, a bag, a couple long guns. I think 2 revolvers. I do know who they came from.
It seemed that what they took from the cart back to the prop truck was the weapons from Jensen Ackles and the other actor that were with him that were given back to Sarah Zachary, and then unloaded. The dummy rounds were thrown away, and then the weapons were taken back to the prop cart to be locked up, is my understanding of
And
it.
other items that I don't know of.
One last question. If law enforcement delays, if they do not conduct a full investigation, it's possible for the defense to lose out on evidence that may have been exculpatory.
Yes, there is.
I have no further questions.
That didn't help at all.
Next witness.
Call Theo Reed.
Your Honor, we call Frank Koucky.
That's not Theo Reed. All right, I'm going to stop the poll. They're calling Frank Koucky, I think is what he said. We're going to zoom. This looks like another expert. given the
That the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
manila envelope.
All right, have a seat talking to the microphone. Thank you.
Let's see what kind of expert he is, and then we'll zoom through background training and experience.
Okay, sir, good afternoon. Can you please tell the jury your name again?
Frank Lewis Blair Koucky III,
Oh,
Where do you
okay.
currently reside?
Carmel Valley, California.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm managing director of Blair Financial Group, Money Managers.
I want you, outside of your management and Blair Financial, to tell the jury about your experience with period firearms.
Yes,
The financial manager from Blair Financial Group is going to talk about period firearms.
prior to,
Proceed?
let me check
Wait,
a note to make sure.
Why are you looking at your notes, sir? Sir? Why are you checking your notes? This is a memory test. You're not allowed to check your notes. Though nobody was mad when fucking Seth Kinney was on his cell phone. Nobody seems to be mad he's checking his notes. You can't do this. This society has rules.
You're correct. I took part in
No objection. No objection.
my first
He's just
movies
reading.
in this, which were done with
There's the objection. Good job. Good job, counsel. She was probably looking down and making a note and didn't notice it at first, to be fair to her. I just have nothing to do but stare at this screen and scream at witnesses.
And I'm not talking about the movies. Let me just,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
yeah, let me just try to center my question.
I'm still objecting.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he's trying to fix the objection. She's objecting because he's reading shit off of a paper. And he's still reading shit off of a paper. Take his notes away.
Just,
He's going to tell him to put his notes away. I'm going to put this at 1.25. This is going to take a minute.
okay, Mr. Koucky, if I can just direct that a little more. I want to go just give the jury an overview of your experience with firearms, and not necessarily getting into movies yet, but your experience with firearms and period firearms and how you obtain that familiarity.
Do you wish for the long explanation or the short?
No, the short. Short's always better.
My father was a combat
Do you wish for the long explanation or the short? And he goes for the short. Are you going to try to qualify him as an expert? Because we might need the longer answer.
MP in the Second World War. I was shooting almost from birth. I was
World
sent
are
to
we
rifle
in?
camp in Butte, Montana at age 6, which is hard to imagine. I grew up around a hunting family. My grandfather was a big time hunter. I grew up hunting deer and pheasants with my uncle in the forests of Ohio. I had Ohio and Indiana and Pennsylvania hunting licenses ever since they were required. I was a member, I was a Boy Scout riflery merit badge winner. I worked, was a member of the Kenyan
We're going back to your experience in the Boy Scouts. And this is the short version.
College of Rifle Team. Following graduation from Kenyon College, I took up firearms in a very serious way, beginning collecting and shooting. I was trained by Louis Tenenbaum, essentially right out of college, who was a member of the U.S.
Is Runkle in the chat? Do we know who Louis Tenenbaum is?
Army Marksmanship Unit, who thought I was worth taking his time with that. I appeared in a number of little television shorts and things like that through that time period. And when I really got going on primitive firearms, and I won't even talk about self-defensive guns at this point, I was trained in combat guns. I first appeared in the George Washington television miniseries in 1984, and I was assigned my role as a surveyor in the wilderness. And of course,
Also
I
an
had
actor.
my first real flintlock in my hands at that time. I, during the earlier times, had shot a lot of primitive weapons, primarily flintlocks. Black powder stuff. Was very interested in that. After that, I got going and I joined a group called the First American Regiment in 1985, which was the premier late 18th century, early 19th century reenactors for military reenactment. And during this time, and I believe you have a nice picture of me.
Why do they call it military reenactment and not LARPing? Chat, can you tell me? Because isn't it just LARPing? Isn't it all just LARP? Isn't military reenactment LARPing? Isn't it the same? Chat.
Firing cannons. I became a sergeant of artillery doing reenactment big time. And in that capacity, I appeared in lots of movies. I fired artillery. This is 18th century artillery. I fired the 1812 Overture with Cincinnati Symphony in various
I'm slowing us back down because I don't know how we got to the 1812 overture by the Cincinnati Symphony. I'm just, there's a lot here. I mean, I might need a book about this man's life, but I need to understand how we're getting to the 1812 overture.
I became a sergeant of artillery doing reenactment big time. And in that capacity, I appeared in lots of movies. I fired artillery. This is 18th century artillery. I fired the 1812 overture with Cincinnati Symphony in various performances in big stadiums.
What did the cannons? Were you firing the cannons?
And things. I also,
I can't. Law really does love the 1800s, doesn't it? I didn't think we were going to get to cannons in the 1800s in this trial, but we have gotten to the 1800s here because fucking law loves the 1800s.
sorry for the cough. I also answered questions for NBC Nightline fairly routinely on weapons identification because, of
I do that too with ABC.
course, I'm a fairly good expert in Russian weapons and one of the largest collectors in the United States.
Sir, my son would love to talk to you about Escape from Tarkov and the weapons accuracy, particularly as it portrays to Russian weapons in that video game, because sometimes the inaccuracy of weapons in video games really just flips him sideways. So I would like to know also, if you are an expert in Russian firearms, do you ever consult with video game makers? Because now I'm curious.
I took part with 1st American Regiment in many, many, many different film productions, television productions, that sort of thing, which were done by PBS and I believe the History Network. These were shown at the time on television and also became educational movies, programs. They sold the rights to us, charging with bayonets to all kinds of addicts.
Tell me more about how they licensed the rights of the programs you were in about bayonets.
Agencies.
Okay, let me stop you for a second
Yeah.
because there's a lot of information.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a.
Mr. Bowles. It's like he's reading the chat. Let me stop you, sir. Is this the short version? Because that's a lot of information. Mr. Bowles, we're 9 days into trial. Let the LARPing man explain his entire life. We are riveted.
That's okay. But I wanted to ask you, in the course of that, and you've had a whole lifetime. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I don't know if he's an expert, but I really like him.
Also, period type weapons.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Are you familiar with the revolver in this case, the 45 long Colt?
Absolutely.
Did you bring with you today that revolver? Not that revolver, but a
Did you walk into court with a firearm and not give it to the bailiff? If so,
revolver just like that revolver?
Yes, we would call it a sister. It is made by Pieta, the same exact company.
We've already
with
seen the brother.
nearly sequential serial numbers. It is absolutely identical.
We've seen
Any
the
part
brother.
would interchange,
Do we now have a
and it will
sister?
look exactly like the Baldwin gun.
Did you also bring a replica gun with you?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell the jury just first of all what
Sure.
that is?
This is a Denex replica. Denex is a company in Spain that makes replicas of anything from shotguns to antique weapons to swords, things like that. They're used by reenactors. They're used in movies. There was a Denex revolver on the set of Rust that was used as one of the dummy guns. There were, in fact, 10.
I'm really hoping that, like with the prosecution expert, these are in a lockbox with the bailiff. I'm nervous how this is going to play out.
Non-firing replica guns
I'm
on
nervous
the
now.
set that look like this. So it can't shoot, but it looks like it. It functions. It cocks. The cylinder turns, and from 5 feet away, you couldn't tell unless
Okay.
you really looked.
Okay, sir. Let me, if I can. Yes, I was going to ask at this time, Your Honor, if I could tender him as an expert in the categories I previously did.
What?
Well, why don't you state them on the record again?
What? How is he an expert? And in what categories? And you have to state it on the record. Your Honor, can I get him qualified as an expert in the categories that y'all already know about?
I was making sure I had the exact wording. Is that okay?
Why
Yeah,
is he looking at the
goes down.
prosecutor asking for permission? Sir, this is your witness and your case in chief. Why are you asking the prosecutor for permission? The look on her face is the look I am also giving you. That look is side eye. It is your witness. Don't ask her for permission.
Because I don't want to change it. Well, I'll just say it again. It's firearm identification, firearm functioning, reloading of ammunition, and identification of ammunition, of dummy rounds and live rounds.
Any objection?
Carrie, how?
No objection within the confines of what we discussed at the bench.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I understand.
Huh.
So, sir, if you will, I'm sorry.
For these specific areas, subject to the ruling up at the bench. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Sir, if you will, if you
Fuck,
could,
what was that?
however,
He
Deputy
seems very
handles
nervous.
this, but if you could retrieve the firearms from behind you.
Do it in public and I will.
Good. The deputy has,
clarify that
I
it
was,
is not loaded.
y'all, I was scared for a minute because you never know what's going to happen in this courtroom. I am very relieved to see the deputy with gloves handing them over. Thank God.
Okay, the first is a real.
Mr. Koucky, are you able to take the cylinder out so you can show everyone also that it's unloaded?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Is that a hammer?
Here is a 10X revolver.
So, Your Honor,
Jesus Christ. Are you going to whack them with a mallet?
I'm going to object.
All right, first of all, everybody's nervous because you have not demonstrated to us that they are unloaded. So before you start showing us the weapons, make sure they're unloaded, including that one that you just touched.
I'm going to back up because as a prosecutor, I don't know if you have a better day than the judge roasting your weapons expert for unsafe weapons handling in front of a jury in a trial where somebody is on trial for unsafe weapons handling and the judge is roasting him right in front of the jury. Carrie's having a good day in court today. Not a great day yesterday. Carrie's having a good day in court today. The defense, not so much.
Also,
We're gonna
it's
watch
unloaded.
that.
Yes, I
We're gonna
can.
hit
Okay.
that on the replay, chat, because this shit's wild.
And here is a 10X revolver.
So, Your Honor, I'm going to object.
All right, first of all, everybody's nervous because you have not demonstrated to us that they are unloaded. So before you start showing us the weapons, make sure they're unloaded, including that one that you just touched.
Carrie, move to disqualify him as an expert. Yeet. She is still yelling at him in front of the jury, and we can't hear it because they cut the audio. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm rewinding because now my screen is too big. He is not demonstrating that this weapon is clear. This is like Poot pointing weapons around the courtroom bad, but we have not established those. We're doing two things at once. Poot in the courtroom, those weapons were cleared by law enforcement. They were zip tied and brought in by law enforcement. This is an outside weapon being brought in by this gentleman. Law enforcement has not cleared it. He has not demonstrated it clear in the courtroom. And now he is pointing it towards the bench, and law enforcement, the sheriff in the courtroom came and pointed the nozzle down. This, if everybody's not watching Runkle's recap tonight, you're going to need to be. And B, what in the ever-loving fuck is happening in this courtroom?
Touched.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Watch what he does with this weapon. Watch him move it and watch what the pointed it directly at the judge. Where is the muzzle discipline, sir? Somebody check on Runkle and make sure he's okay. This judge is not thrilled. I really want to hear what she's saying. Oh my God. And yes, for everyone in the chat that's saying he just lost all his credibility in front of the jury, yes, he did. Yes, he did. So this is the judge is watching him like a freaking hog. The judge woke up. Everybody woke up. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This dude impeached himself. Yeah. Yeah, he did. This judge is not pleased. I would not be pleased. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know if he's testifying again because nobody has brought back the audio in court. So this. No, I just meant in the chat, check on Runkle. We're not calling a wellness check on Runkle. Thank you, Court TV, but can we have audio? Could he be taken off the stand? Yes. They could ask to undesignate him. He has illustrated that he is perhaps not an expert witness. You all, hold on. That's not what I meant to do. Live court is never predictable. This is why we watch. You never know what's going to happen in court. And what I didn't expect was literally any of this. This is absolutely bananas. But thanks for the close-up, Court TV, I suppose. I bet the defense couldn't get an armorer. But Theo Reed, her dad's an armorer. And he's on the witness list and he's in the court hallway today. Okay, I'm going to zoom past whatever's going on right now, unless we get a close-up of the judge's face being pissed off again. He also brought a hammer. If this man is going to try to whack these weapons with a mallet in court, the judge is going to lose her mind. I will lose my mind. The judge's face is all of us at this moment.
Okay, Mr. Koucky, I want to make sure that, first of all, the Denix is the replica that's non-firing. That is obviously clear. It cannot fire, correct?
Yes, I wish to demonstrate.
Okay, but and just let me lead the question.
Sure.
The other Pieta, you cleared with the deputy, but I want you to be able to take that cylinder out so we can show everyone is clear. Is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Gun is pointed in a safe direction.
Was it pointed in a safe direction when you were pointing it at the judge, sir? Because I have questions.
Now, if we can get this pin out, the cylinder is retained. Cylinder is retained by a pin. Once that pin is removed, the gun may be put in a partially cocked position. The cylinder may be pushed out.
Oh my
Again, the
God.
barrel's
Oh
safe.
my God.
You can
Oh
look
my
right straight
God.
through it. Sir, would you take that and show them all? It's empty. Is that acceptable?
It's up to the court.
Yes.
Okay.
The
no,
deputy is not involved in this.
Okay.
case.
Okay. And so,
Sir, will you take this and show all of them it's empty? The court, no, the deputy's not a witness. Sir, you can get up and show them. You can show the court. You can. How much better does the prosecution's weapons expert look? Do you think the prosecution's weapons expert is watching this clown show screaming at their screen? Because I imagine
It
that
is
they
empty. I demonstrated it's empty.
okay. Okay.
May I return it to the
Yes.
firearm?
I'm going to end the poll. Do you think the defense will call Phil Reed this afternoon? 61% yes, 39% no. I'm going to redo that poll because now that they called this witness, I think we're going to be stuck. I think we've gotten stuck. I think we've gotten stuck here for the rest of the day. I think we're stuck. I think he's stuck. I don't know how the cause. I still don't understand the
So
expert
now the first thing I
qualifications.
want to ask you, comparing the Denix, the replica.
I'm
to
actually
the
anxious. Like my
the
heart rate
Pieta,
is actually like.
do they share some of the same characteristics?
Yes, they do.
And can you tell the jury, is the Denix made to look like the Pieta?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. The defendant's face looking at this witness is, are you fucking joking me that this is our weapons expert? I feel for this defendant because she looks absolutely fucking livid that this is their witness. She's like, sir, I don't blame her at all. I would be fucking livid. I would be asking my attorney, where the fuck did you find this guy and how is this happening? Are you joking me? She looks so mad. And you know what? She has every right to be mad. I'd be mad too.
And side
Every right
by
to be
side, if you can, and Your Honor, may he step down?
My
Show
God.
The jury?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't blame her. No, I don't blame her either. Every right to be pissed. That
Sir, if you
deputy
can
is not
show
moving
them
away from this
the
man.
Pieta and the Denex side by side. Just,
Sir, this deputy
so
does
they
not
can
trust
see.
you at all.
This is a Denex. It is a replica, totally unfiring with a block barrel. It functions completely.
Is this expert's already shit the bed with his testimony. He's already proven that he's awful. And nobody's going to really listen much to what he has to say because of the judge scolding him because he was not checking the weapons and showing them that they were safe. But I think his point is to show that the replica is not capable of being fired, and that's what they should have used. But we've already heard plenty of evidence that Alec Baldwin likes his hero toys and he wants them to go boom. So he feels like he is shooting the pew-pews on his movie set. And that is why they are not using replicas. They are using recreation firing rounds.
Like a regular revolver, the cylinder turns, it will cock.
Also, chat, yes, I'm granting the motion. Chat, I have seen all the motions for Code Red. I'm granting the motion for Code Red. We are moving to DEFCON what the fuck. For all of you that are flash sensitive, we are going to DEFCON what the fuck in just a second. The bumper is flashy, but the flashy ends when the music ends. So we are going to DEFCON Red in 3, 2, 1. In a trial full of fuckery, day 9, we have reached peak fuckery. Let's
It will snap and fire. It's unable to fire any ammunition. It's used
weapons
as a
experts,
replica.
not where I
It's
thought
made
we
of
were going to
metal,
find the fuckery, but it
and
tracks.
functions just like a single action army.
It
Colt,
tracks.
but
It
can't
tracks.
fire. I'll bring the next one.
It
And
tracks.
we'll compare them.
If we're going to get peak fuckery in this court,
Next gun in the same position. This is a Pieta revolver. This is the sister gun to the Baldwin gun. It's a 45 caliber single action 1873 revolver, like was issued to Custer's troops. It is a true 40.
I didn't have Custer. I didn't have Custer on the bingo card, but this was like issued to Custer's troops. So there.
5 long Colt. We call it just Colt. And it was designed for the U.S. Army to be able to kill a man and a horse. And it was the most popular firearm.
Leave the horses alone in this trial. Why are you giving us a history of the weapon that it was designed for the U.S. Army to kill a man and a horse? Does that mean it's a powerful weapon that shouldn't be shot at people?
In Western movies.
Thank you, Mr. Koucky. If you could.
Now, may I show the two together?
You're not helping
yes, if you
anybody,
will just
sir.
show but not with testimony, but just showing them.
What is happening in this courtroom? What is happening in this courtroom? April Dawn, thank you. I'm taking that as a motion for Code Red. I'm going to text Runkle and see if he's doing okay. And I'm not surprised this man knows the history of these weapons. Historical cosplaying seems to be his thing, and that's fantastic. I don't know if he's wearing a leather holster in court. He's definitely wearing leather something in court under his tie. I don't know what it is.
Mr. Koucky, in your review as an expert in this case, are you aware whether there was a Denex revolver like that on set on Rust?
Yes, there is. It was covered in the invoices as rented by Rust Management.
Now, not demonstrating at this point, but can you tell the jury based on what you just showed them?
He would be a very interesting history teacher. I'm sure it would be fantastic if you were out on a battlefield and he was walking you through what happened at Gettysburg. But I'm not sure how we feel about it in court today.
On the Pieta, how you safely decock that firearm.
God damn
You
it.
did it, Kyle.
You wished me to pick up the gun and show how it is decocked? I would prefer first showing on a Denex to them and
Yes.
then on a live
Just
one.
show,
Your Honor, I'm
don't,
gonna object. Can you approach?
I don't have words. I really don't have words for what's happening here. I really don't. Neither does the judge. The judge's face.
okay, Mr. Koucky, if you will, using the Denex, the replica, demonstrate that the cocking and proper decocking.
And
of
this
that weapon.
witness seems now to be
This is
rattled
one
by
of the
getting yelled at by the
primary
judge.
Things that an individual must be trained in to safely cock and decock a Colt revolver or a replica. Now, first, the finger has to stay off of the trigger and outside of the trigger guard, no matter what. That's the essential rule of safety. The firearm is cocked with your thumb, you see. Finger's still outside of the trigger. No one touches any trigger. This is now a gun capable of being fired. Now, the first thing I do here is put my thumb on top of it. If I'm not real strong, I put two thumbs on. Notice my finger is still completely off the trigger. I then slowly, gently pull the trigger and lower the hammer onto the cartridge. I then back it up to its safe position. Now I will demonstrate the same thing
I love that we can hear it
Exactly.
click.
with the real P8 revolver. Okay, we have P8 safely aimed. My finger is off the trigger. You can see. This
I'm
is
still
where it
anxious.
has to stay.
I'm still
The
anxious.
finger's in there, you can't decock safely.
If we're all still anxious watching on the internet, how do you think the jury feels? Like, I'm stressed out.
Now, again, we cock 1, 2, 3, 4. C-O-L-T, the clicks. This is a cocked, ready to fire revolver if it were loaded. My finger must stay out of the trigger guard and on the side. Now,
And the
I put my
prosecution
finger
witness
in,
did this
but
very
I don't
well.
put it in until I put my thumb here. Even putting it in before, like that, would cause it to fire perhaps. Now, I'm holding the hammer back. I can feel the spring.
Oh yeah, YouTube
Everything
hates my
safe?
coverage of this trial
Now
today,
my
I'm sure.
finger goes
No,
on the
they've been
trigger,
great.
pulls
YouTube's
the
been great.
trigger, slowly lowers to a safe position without snapping, and then pulls back to the safety notch, which removes the firing pin from the cartridge. Notice my finger is out of there again, not that the gun is cocked. And that's the only decocking. A guy doing this experience can do it with his thumb because this is all knurled here, so it can't slip. Finger
Please don't tell me more about a guy experienced in decocking. Witness, I can't handle it today. I am stressed. I am starting to sweat. I don't know what's happening. The judge has yelled at you, and now we're back to talking about decocking. Why wasn't the state's expert enough on this? Just cross-examine the state's expert. The state's weapons expert was so lovely.
is out of there. I decocked safely.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for demonstrating that. And I wanted to ask you with regard to that operation, in this particular case, we're dealing with a movie set, obviously.
Yes.
Judy said, "I'm paying this guy whatever it is, it's too much."
Including the demonstration you just did, do they apply equally on movie sets?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, in your work as an expert in this case, reviewing all the information, did you agree with Mr. Haig's conclusion regarding
The state's
violation of
expert.
some of those safety
Back to the
rules?
state's expert.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to ask you, I want to switch topics. I want to ask you about reloading. There's been some testimony about an inertia puller.
Yes.
And if you could tell the jury what an inertia puller is.
An inertia puller is basically a type of hammer that pulls bullets out of loaded cartridges when you have a misfire or you wish to disassemble old ammo. Basically, it has a plastic head about this big. It has a handle on it like a hammer. They cost about $12. You put the cartridge, which could be any kind of cartridge, old dead cartridges, whatever you got, and you put it in, clamp it down with a little device, close the thing up. There'll be an empty space underneath, and there'll be a ring here holding the cartridge in metal, and you bang it on a table, and the bullet is pulled out. That the bullet, remember, is the lead part, not the case.
You just bang it
And
on the
bullet will
table?
fall out. If there's powder, that will fall out as well. You then get a bullet.
That can't be right.
Ka-ching. You have powder, which you can pour out, and you have a case, which may or may not be live primed, or, you know, maybe a good primer, maybe a rechargeable case, maybe anything that happens to be there.
Okay, so Mr. Koucky, if you wanted to reload a round, let's say you want to convert a dummy round to a live round, what are the steps in the reloading process?
Why?
Well,
Why?
this is
Why?
really
Why?
extremely technically difficult. And the way it begins is you have to have, suppose it is a dummy. This is a beat up old piece of old brass that happens to have a dummy bullet in it. It has a dead primer in it. So what you start is you pop out the bullet. You see there's no powder. Now you turn over the case, put the bullet aside. The case is
This is outside the scope of expertise that he was qualified for. I realize that everybody just lets that go this trial, but I'm just saying, in the realm of expertise, hand loading, I don't think was on there, but I don't know. I got so distracted by the judge yelling at him that I have forgotten everything else, but I thought it was identifying rounds.
filthy.
Maybe it
The
was
case is
loading.
all grody and nasty from sitting around. It has to go in a machine called a tumbler. Every reloader worth his salt has a tumbler. It's about this big. Sometimes it's a ball, sometimes it's a drum. It's filled with generally powdered walnut, and it's got a motor, and it spins and spins and spins as a polishing machine. And at the end of that time, you
Like
come out
tumbling
with
rocks,
brass
I would
that looks
imagine.
somewhat better than it started because it's knocked off some of the crud. You then wipe that down smooth. You then have to have a tool which is called a reloading press. I have a photograph, if you wish to see, of a reloading press.
No.
Would that be acceptable?
No.
We can actually. If you
Probably
can
no.
Let's go
the
finish.
process,
Uh, You then have a reloading press. The reloading press, as one of its functions, is to get that old dead primer out. Remember, the primer's in the little hole in the bottom of the brass you're holding. This press has a big lever. It has a special pin designed for that cartridge to remove the primer, because if it went the other direction, you'd bang the cartridge up. But there's one more tool you must have, and that's called a shell carrier or a little shell holder. And that's sized exactly for the diameter of the rim of the cartridge you're going to take apart. So a 45 couldn't take a 380 or something like that. Has to be a 45. Slide in that so it holds it's completely solid. Put this in your press, line it up over the top and pull. And when you pull, that pin will drive out the primer. It changes. Now you've got a case with no primer in it. It's shined up as best as your material can do. Now we get to
Okay.
the good part. You have to put a new primer in.
We get to the good
First, you have
part.
to have a new primer, and they're very, very hard to get in much of the markets because they've been just grabbed up. So you take this tiny little primer, you put it in a tool called a priming tool. This may be part of your press, or it may be an independent.
I have Tahine
And
gummy bears.
This will hold the primer safely. Again,
We've moved
it
on.
has to be for your cartridge. You have to put that little shell holder in.
I don't know if the
Put
jury's
shell,
listening to you
which is
anymore,
empty,
sir.
the empty
After
case,
earlier.
slide it into the holder, pull the lever, and the primer, which is quite explosive, is pressed carefully flat up into the exact right position.
How explosive
And
is
if
it?
you didn't have the shell holder in all the right gear, you couldn't do it. The primer would blow up the minute it was hit. But it's
That
safe
would suck.
this way. Now you've got a case, and that case is certain to get to be a live case. And it would be called a live case. It has a live primer, nice shiny case. You then put that in your press and go to the next stage. I have the press. You stick it in that ever-present shell holder again. It holds it perfectly, immaculately straight. You then have on your press something called a sizing
Yep,
die.
we're definitely
A
speeding him up
sizing die
at this
costs about
point.
$55. Fits in presses. You adjust
Thanks.
that properly, which takes some skill, and you pull. The sizing die goes right over the top of the case and makes it the right size, because an old dummy isn't the right size. It'd jam up in your gun, wouldn't take a bullet, piece of junk. Once it's sized, there's a little ball
Okay.
inside, pulls it up, and that very neatly expands the top of the case.
There's no
And because of
evidence that
expansion,
things are
you can't
reloaded.
put a new bullet in. So now we've got a nice
I don't know what
expanded
the
case
point of the
with a nice
reloading
live
testimony
primer
is
in
at
it.
this
Looks pretty
point.
darn good. It's all sized to the right size. The mouth is expanded. Now you got to have a powder measure, and you have to have the right powder. You can't just use any old gunpowder. There are literally dozens and dozens. It has to be the acceptable powder for a 45 load and measured. You get too much, you blow up. literally blow up the gun, blow up in your face. And everybody knows about that. Put too little in, you get something called a squib, where it pushes the
Yes, we were in a trial where somebody was killed by a weapon. It will blow up. Everybody knows about that. Yes, sir. We don't understand the point of your testimony at this point.
bullet into the barrel where it sticks. That's what killed Brandon Lee, was a stuck bullet. And now you've got the right amount of powder. Now to measure that powder, you need either a powder scoop of the right size, and they make dozens.
Chad, I see you asking for help. I'm as
scoop it out.
befuddled
That's
as you
pretty fast.
are.
That's the old way. The new way is something like what I have, and these are computer-driven, perfect measures that will get within 1 grain of powder. And they're computer-driven trickle chargers. They cost about $300. They're real fancy. Put in the powder, put in the exact grains of weight that you want that powder to be, press the button, and a little tiny tray fills up, and you dump it into the
There were sound effects.
cartridge through a little funnel. Now you've got powder, you got primer, you got a good case. You take your bullet and you put it on the top. But you need one more tool for your press, and that is a die that fits that bullet.
B2,
So
I
you put
agree
in the
with you.
die, everything's sitting
RK,
there.
I agree
pull
with
the big
you.
lever and puts pressure straight exactly down to push the bullet in exactly as deep as you want it to go. And after it's in there, the die that you've purchased, which is another expensive toy, presses on the outside of the case and puts what's called a crimp on it. And that case now has the bullet seated
So it's
on
a
top of the powder, the exact correct depth, which you know through measurements and books, and it squeezed real tight. Otherwise, the bullet would just fall out. Or the first time you fired the gun, the bullet would just flop out on the other cartridges.
you would have a limp bullet, sir. You're demonstrating a limp bullet. That's what's happening. Here's the thing. All this testimony is done. All of this is done is prove to us that Seth Kinney doesn't have any of this equipment at PDQ. Like, as he's talking about the amount of equipment to reload rounds, and Seth Kinney's like, I don't have reloaders. As he's talking about the amount of equipment needed, it's really convincing me that Seth Kinney didn't have that equipment.
It must be crimped tight.
So, Mr. Koucky, that is an enormous amount of steps, correct?
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that complete explanation, because would you agree that it's not sufficient to just have an inertia puller
No,
to accomplish all those steps? Okay.
it's useless.
Okay. And with all of that required for reloading, you've described the components of a live bullet. Are you also in agreement with the FBI that you cannot tell a live round from a dummy?
Yes.
With a picture.
In a picture, absolutely not.
Did you, I know in the course of your expert work, you're able to watch portions of the trial and pay
Yes.
attention. Did you see in any of the videos or any of the pictures, any of this type of reloading equipment you've been talking about?
Well, I believe in Seth has a tumbler, I think I saw in the back, which is what you polish up brass with for reloading. I saw
Action Foundation.
I told you we were getting to Seth Kinney. I thought that's where we were going with all of this. I think she said Objection Foundation.
I'm having an issue with my shoe. Pardon me.
Counsel's having an issue with her shoe. We're gonna zoom past this. I don't even know what to say. They're trying to get to, did Seth Kinney make the bullets? Because they're still trying to prove the bullets didn't come from Hannah. I think that's where we're at.
Sir, let me ask you on a different topic.
So the objection was sustained. He lost, and now he has to move on. And the entire point of this witness was to say that the bullets might have come from Seth Kinney, and it seems that we've lost
With regard to
that.
the dangers of intermixing live and dummy ammunition.
You know, the shoe issue's worth the objection.
Can you tell the jury if
But I bet her shoe was off at counsel table, and she had to put her shoe back on before she could approach.
those are stored in the same place, or is that potentially dangerous?
And I will object if we can approach, please.
Mr. Bowles' face was everything. Can you please focus back on the lawyers? Mr. Bowles' face was like, the fuck now? She was already walking. She's like, Mom, all of this is outside the scope. There's not foundation for any of this. So we're back to testimony.
Koucky, do you regularly, as
Foundation.
a gun collector, gun owner, everything, do you regularly have interaction with different types of ammunition?
So
Yes,
these
I
were
do.
foundational.
And does that include
objections.
live ammunition and dummy ammunition?
Yes, it does.
And do you, with regard to the dummy ammunition, do you teach individuals?
Mr. Bowles should have fought back on this. because Carrie didn't object to him becoming an expert, and he was an expert in identifying dummy ammunition and live ammunition. He was qualified that way. So Bowles shouldn't have to lay any more foundation. Carrie didn't object.
Safe, proper gun safety.
Should have objected
Absolutely.
earlier.
I'm an NRA certified pistol instructor.
And as part of that, do you sometimes use dummy rounds?
I'm sorry. I need to know what kind of pistol instructor he is again.
Teach individuals safe, proper gun safety.
Absolutely. I'm an NRA
Oh,
certified
NRA certified.
pistol instructor.
I couldn't
And
hear
as
what he
part of
said.
that, do you sometimes use dummy rounds in your teaching with them?
Yes, I do.
In that capacity, have you become familiar with various types of dummy ammunition?
Yes, I do.
And
I
are
am.
you familiar with various types of live ammunition?
Yes, I am.
Do you store
Bowles, I'm going to need you to fight with Morrissey more. He's already been designated as an expert. You shouldn't have to lay any additional foundation. She didn't object.
live ammunition?
You're going back to
Or
1.25.
do you have a place to store live ammunition yourself?
Yes, I do.
And do you have a place to store dummy ammunition yourself?
Yes, I do.
Are you familiar with whether there are any dangers of storing those together?
Absolutely.
And why would that be?
There are two sides of the danger. One easy to see, and that is if a live round somehow found its way in with look-alike dummy ammunition, you would have
This
a
is
very
all
severe
about Seth
chance of
Kinney,
having somebody getting killed. Now, the flip side,
but it's going to
is
apply to Hannah
perhaps
too.
equally dangerous.
Is it dangerous to store it all together? Yes. On cross-examination, sir, is it dangerous to just take, dummy rounds and blanks and just dump them into a fanny pack? Would that be dangerous too?
No less visible. If I'm hunting Russian wild boar, which I hunt with a handgun in California, and I go to shoot at a Russian.
Why is this becoming the Murdaugh trial? Yesterday we had 300 blackout rounds, and now we're back to hunting wild boar with Russian wild boar with a hand. Why are we back to wild boar? What in the South Carolina is happening here? I am behind time, clearly, and I need to stop interrupting. But what the fuck?
With look-alike dummy ammunition, you would have a very severe chance of having somebody getting killed. Now, the flip side is perhaps equally dangerous, though less visible. If I'm hunting Russian wild boar, which I hunt with a handgun in California, and I go to shoot at a Russian wild boar that weighs 325 pounds and it's coming right at me, and the gun goes click because I substituted a dummy, I will be the dead one. So yes, both sides are bad.
Absolutely. And with regard to your storage of ammunition, is it important to have an inventory system?
Yes, I have a inventory system for all my ammunition, all my powder, all of my reloading, which goes into dozens of different
To all the
kinds of
South
rounds.
Carolinians in the chat who
And
would
in the
like to be
course of your
excluded,
reloading,
I
did you
feel
become
you.
aware that in 2021 timeframe, was it difficult to purchase primers?
Yes, we called the great ammo shortage, and there was, for a variety of reasons, a huge run on ammunition. You couldn't get primers.
I don't know why he's hunting wild boar in California with a handgun, because I'm pretty sure what I learned from all of the witnesses in the Murdaugh case is that you really want that 300 blackout because handguns just piss them off. But what do I know? I'm not shooting at wild boar anywhere, so I don't want to be near wild boar. I'm kind of terrified of wild turkeys. I want nothing to do with boar, but this afternoon is wild.
They just didn't happen. You couldn't get them. You go to the store, you couldn't get them. You couldn't get even 9mm ammo. You couldn't get almost anything. The store shelves were emptied out. People were hoarding powder, even
And toilet
my
paper.
long-range rifle stuff. I couldn't get powder. So yes, that's called the great ammo shortage, and to a certain extent, it still goes on.
Now, during your course as an expert, in this case, you heard Mr. Haig's testimony. Do you agree with his conclusion that the live rounds found on set were reloads?
Yeah, well, hand loads. A
Hand loads.
reload means that it's an old case reloaded. He was very
Objection. Let's approach.
Carrie sounds exasperated. Objection, let's approach. Your Honor. Carrie has objected more during the defense's case than we've ever seen. I don't know if he said Russian wild boar or rushing wild boar. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna finish my gummy bears.
Is it your opinion that from your viewing them, that the live rounds on set were reloads or hand loads?
I'm gonna need
Yes,
more
it
gummy
is.
bears to get through this trial.
And would you explain what what you saw, the quality, were they lower quality in your opinion?
Lower quality than what?
In terms
Fair.
of like a store-bought round from a major manufacturer or something like that, or do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I believe they were less consistent than that of a major manufacturer. Meaning, and I can expound on that if you wish.
Yes.
Okay. When you get,
I'm going to object again. Let's approach.
Can I expand on that? No. Objection. Oh, the lawyers are feisty this afternoon, as they should be. But you know what the thing is? The defense should have been doing this whole trial, because the prosecution brought in a whole lot of expert testimony through non-experts. Both sides should have been doing this. Bowles looks annoyed as hell, but this is what he should have been doing this entire trial.
Okay, Mr. Koucky, so your opinion is that these are hand loads?
correct.
Okay. Now, you understand also as an expert in reviewing the information in this case, there are a variety of different types of dummy rounds on set? There were a variety?
Yes.
Okay. And did that include some that rattled, some that did not rattle, and some with a hole in the side?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also review evidence in this case of Mr. Baldwin not only being dangerous at the time of the actual tragic shooting, but dangerous at other times on set?
Objection.
Even her tone is put out. Objection. And Bowles's face kind of towards the jury is just like, this again. We haven't even gotten to the lunch break yet.
Did you?
I'm surprised the judge hasn't made him take a lunch break, truly.
Okay, sir, my full question was going to be, did you see evidence that Mr. Baldwin was not safe with firearms after there was a yell of cut in a particular scene and he shot a blank after that scene?
I'm sorry. I'm forgetting what Baldwin has to do with this trial, because after your client hands off the weapon, your client's part of this case kind of stops, other than the fact that Helena was killed. But like, what Baldwin does is not related to her loading the weapons. I know we took lunch. This is the
Yes, I feel
afternoon.
like-
We need the afternoon break. I don't know what I need.
That's unsafe.
Is that why Director Joel Souza yelled "cut, motherfucker"? Because I feel like it
one
is.
further question. Are you familiar with the period weapon called a Henry rifle?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar if that is loaded or unloaded at the bottom of that rifle?
you,
Whether
Jen.
somebody could see whether there was rounds at the bottom of it if they're just looking?
Yes, a Henry, may I go into
Yes.
detail? A Henry rifle is a predecessor to the Winchester. Mr. Henry actually invented the Winchester. It is a rifle with a very long barrel, doesn't have a handguard under, which was a problem.
Why?
It's loaded from the top
Why?
in a kind of a weird way.
Why
And the ammunition, the
is that the type of weapon that is at issue here? No. Okay, then why?
cartridges are dropped into a long tube where a spring pushes them
It's
down.
not too early for
One of the biggest
whiskey or an edible
disadvantages, and
or
this was in the
whatever.
Civil War, is it has a long open side on it, beneath the barrel, where you can actually look in and see all the loaded cartridges. Now, they thought that was a really good deal until they got in the mud of the trenches and the cartridges were all jammed. Right now, if you look at a Henry, anybody who knows anything about Henrys looks at that Henry,
Fat
it
yoga,
says the
thank
whole
you.
side's open and you can see ammunition in there, dummies, whatever. And if you don't have that, they're going to be laughing because it looks like an empty rifle.
Finally, sir, the last question I want to ask you, with regard to, there was some criticism in the trial, one point of Ms. Gutierrez Reed.
Do you promise this is the last question? And I'm going to back it up because he's talking about criticism of his client, and I think he's trying to clarify something, and I don't know what.
The last question I want to ask you, with regard to, there was some criticism in the trial, one point of Ms. Gutierrez Reed holding a shotgun with it pointed in front of her. And is there, do you have an opinion on that with regard to, for example, military drill?
Yes, I do.
Are you asking this witness about muzzle control? Because what I remember of this expert from muzzle control is that the in-court deputy reached over and pointed the muzzle of the gun away from the judge and towards the ground. So are we really going to ask him about muzzle control? But I want to get to cross, so I'm going to stop.
Objection.
So that's all the questions I have.
Oh, he lost the objection and gave up.
Objection, withdraw that question. And that's all the questions I have.
Do we need to slow down for cross? Oh,
Cross-exam.
we're at normal speed. Hannah had more questions for this witness. No, I don't see Mr. Bouillon at the defense table. A couple of you asked today. I don't see him. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's in the courtroom or he got dispensation.
Mr. Koucky,
What the fuck, sir? She doesn't even
do
know
you
what
agree with me that
to do.
basic gun safety requires that the handler of the gun not point the gun at anyone?
If it's a real gun, yes.
Do you agree with me that while you were sitting here in the courtroom, you pulled out a gun?
It's all
and you
happening.
pointed it at the judge?
I do not.
You disagree?
I pointed the gun into this space up here, never directly at the
We watched it on the replay, sir.
judge.
Do you agree that basic gun safety requires
Chad, I'm going to put up a poll and ask you. We watched it on the replay. I'm going to put up a poll and ask you what you thought it looked like. Again, we are watching from a camera angle. His perception of what he's doing might be different, but I am putting up a poll.
that you keep the muzzle of the gun pointed down for safety?
Not at all. A gun may be pointed, as any hunter education class like I taught, may be pointed up, may be pointed back, may be pointed cross arms, as in the military, may be pointed at the ground, may be put in something like a military stance, such as order arms with the butt on the ground and the piece right under your arm. So no. And to further, in a cross draw or any of the
No, I'm not talking about a cross draw. Thank you. Do you agree that when you pulled that firearm out and pointed it in the direction of the judge, the deputy standing next to you had to intervene and grab the
Your
gun
Honor, I'm
and
gonna
point
object.
it down?
I'm going to object.
Also, I think what these attorneys should have done is put on the record, Your Honor, for the record, the witness seems to have pointed the gun towards Your Honor and the deputy's pointing it down. That might have been done at sidebar. Oh, this trial's not real. I am not convinced that this is real.
Mr. Koucky, have you ever been qualified as an expert in firearms safety in a court of law?
Ma'am,
No.
why did you not object
Have you
more?
ever worked on criminal cases before?
Yes, I have.
In what capacity?
Have all of the cases that the criminal cases that you've worked on, has Mr. Bowles been the attorney in all of them?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No.
Who else have you worked with, sir? Oh, there's receipts. Carrie's got receipts. Cross-examinations with receipts
Please.
are the best. She even put down the laptop with annoyance. I'm going to speed this up to 1.25 until we catch up to whatever she's looking for. But see, here's the thing. You're supposed to have receipts when you cross-examine someone. So when they say something in contradiction to what you have, you're not standing up there like Bowles going, can you get me back to that timestamp? You're standing up there with the receipts going, where is the lie? Show me where I lied. Did I stutter?
Let me clarify my question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Which means she was wrong.
worked on criminal cases related to the securities industry?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Other than, and you're an investment banker, correct?
Not exactly, but sufficient name for it.
Okay. And other than working on criminal cases having to do with securities, do you agree with me that the only other types of criminal cases you've worked on have all involved Mr. Bowles?
I do not.
Isn't it true, sir, that you provided a pretrial interview in this case on November 29th, 2023?
Yes.
And isn't it true that during that interview, my investigator, Mr. Rice, asked you, is Mr. Bowles the only attorney that you've worked with? And your response was, outside of the securities industry in the past, yes.
Yes, and I have worked since then, and I have worked prior to that confidentially with cases before the United States Navy and other cases.
Well, if they're
which were
confidential.
criminal, and I believed you were speaking only of what's going on here. If you'd like to hear the other ones, I'm very happy to tell you. I worked, for example, with the Monterey Sheriffs.
Is there a question?
No, there isn't. There is not a question on the table right now.
He was just still going, and the judge cut him off. But there was no question pending, which is an objection they don't seem to know because they have never used it.
You
before.
gave a lengthy description about how a person could turn a dummy round into a live round. You recalled the testimony that you gave moments ago.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about doing the opposite, okay? I want to talk to you about taking a live round and turning it into a dummy round,
Okay.
okay? Do you agree with me, sir, that the first step
Thank you, Kat
is
and
you
Lexi,
would
for the
place
gift
the
of
live round
memberships.
in the inertia puller and smack it so that the projectile separates and the powder comes.
Wait, you really put it in the inertia puller and then whack it on a table? Like you're opening a can of freaking biscuits or like crescent rolls? Like, are you telling me that you are building bullets the same way that I make crescent rolls, which actually sound delicious now? You just like put it in the thing and whack it on the table? Runkle's in the chat saying, yes, that's accurate. That's accurate. The Runkle in the chat said yes. That's accurate. That is how the inertia puller works. Why does it feel so weird to me?
Out.
Yes.
And
Okay.
at that point in time, you are left with
Just whack it
an
on the
empty
table.
casing, a projectile, a pile of gunpowder. But the problem with your casing is that it still has a live primer, right?
That's right.
So in order to make the primer inert, you can take that empty shell casing with that live primer, you can put it into a firearm and you can fire it.
Correct.
And now I've made the primer inert.
There is another way if you wish to hear.
No,
No, she sure
I
doesn't.
appreciate you though, but
Thank you.
you
Yes, I agree.
agree that
No,
what I'm saying.
she would like to just ask you the questions. Lorraine said, so he's a banking LARPer. I feel like this could be an expensive hobby. So
It can be done.
Can be done.
And then after I've fired it and I've heard the pop, knowing that the primer has now been
Popped.
made inert, I can take that projectile and I can just put super glue on it and stick it back into that casing.
Well, you couldn't normally without expanding the case. That's what I was talking about when you do a sizer. You could expand the case with a sizer because what's going to happen in many cases, and I can't say every one because I've never done super glue, is it's very difficult to get a bullet into a case that hasn't been expanded and sized. You could try it. I can't guarantee it'll work.
Sure, I mean, you can take the empty shell casing and you can put it on top of a projectile and you can take your inertia puller or a hammer and just tap it down.
An inertia puller is made out of plastic. It is not for tapping anything down. But you could take a hammer, but what's very likely to happen is you'll bend the case beyond all use and recognition and it can't fall in. That's why you expand cases in the process. You could try it. I've never beaten any bullets. Some bullets are very, very hard. Some are soft.
let's not beat the bullets. I think what Carrie's trying to get to is that Hannah Gutierrez raided as production to pay for her to have an inertia puller, and maybe that Hannah was the one who was reloading it. But I think we've gotten very far afield.
So it is possible with a soft lead bullet that you could maybe not bend your case and maybe not shave off your bullet. Possible.
You're all going back to 1.25.
Isn't it true, sir, that the live ammunition found on the set of Rust, in fact, had soft lead bullets?
I didn't measure the lead, so there's something called a
Hang on. I appreciate your response. In fact, sir, you have never actually viewed the live rounds that are in evidence. You've only seen pictures of them. Isn't that correct? So you haven't taken them and looked at them, right?
No, I've taken all the pictures and looked. That's it.
Okay. But you watched the testimony of our expert, Mr. Haig.
Yes, I did.
And isn't it true that Mr. Haig testified that the projectiles from the live rounds found on the set of Rust were soft lead.
I didn't hear soft, but lead, certainly.
They weren't copper jacketed,
No,
correct?
no, not copper jacketed.
And he also testified that because they were lead, and lead is a soft metal, that's the reason that that projectile became so damaged when it went through Ms. Hutchins and into Mr. Souza.
Absolutely. That's called ballooning.
All right, thank you, sir.
She really wants him to just answer the question asked, and on cross, it is appropriate to try to rein them in and be like, you answered yes or no. You don't get to explain. That's what redirect is for.
You testified on direct examination that you can't tell a live round from a dummy round in a photograph.
Simply in a photograph. I agree with Mr. Haig, who said the same thing.
Well, do you agree with me that you can tell a live round from a dummy round in a photograph if that dummy round has a hole drilled into the casing so it can't have any gunpowder?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, sir.
So you can tell the difference from a photo in the right circumstance. So it's not as really yes or no.
And in your review of the case materials, sir, you understand that live ammunition from PDQ Props was sent to the FBI, and it was determined to be substantially different than the live rounds found on the set of Rust.
I do.
You gave an opinion earlier that you believe that the live rounds were hand loads.
Yes,
You
I
recall
do.
that?
Yes.
And I just want to be clear, you're giving that opinion just from looking at photographs, not from going to the evidence room, taking the evidence, handling it in the way that Mr. Haig did.
Yes.
All
And,
right.
and from Mr. Haig's testimony as well.
Okay.
And from Mr. Haig's testimony as well, because Mr. Haig was pretty
Great.
great.
Pass the witness.
And we're done with cross.
I'll have
I was waiting for her to be like, I'm finished with you. The defense has no further
any
questions.
follow-up questions.
This witness is excused. Thank you.
May help me with these.
I'm waiting for the judge to just be like, get the fuck out. Just GFO, sir. Look at the judge's face. She's just like, get off my witness stand. Get off my witness stand. Get off my witness stand. The deputies are helping him pack up. I'm going to zoom a little bit to get this man out of court. They're approaching probably about scheduling given the time it is. Let's see. Nobody even looked at that witness, it seemed, as he was leaving the courtroom. I think they're...
You can expect closing arguments to commence tomorrow.
You're breaking? They're not calling Thel? Is the defense resting?
All right, jury, we're going to finish for the day. You can expect closing arguments to commence tomorrow morning, not right away.
One more witness for the defense then.
The defense is still putting on their case, but when the defense is finished, then we will
I don't
do
think-
closing arguments, and they anticipate that
Hannah's
it
not
will be
gonna
sometime
testify.
in the morning that we will get to closing arguments, okay? So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Don't do any research or online Googling about the Rust production or this trial. Thank you. We'll see you at 8:30.
Closing arguments tomorrow. Y'all. Good work, people. We're almost there. Law nerds, you've done incredible work. We're almost there. I imagine they have one more witness tomorrow. That indicates Hannah's not taking the stand because that would be at least a day or two of testimony. So we're getting to closing arguments, they think, before lunch tomorrow, which means the jury will be out deliberating tomorrow. And by Thursday, y'all, we might get clear of this trial tomorrow or Thursday for sure, which is real exciting news for everybody. So for everyone in the chat who said that last witness was the defense's Dr. Spiegel, a little less weird, but definitely not a great expert. Definitely not a great expert. Question: why does the defense have less witnesses? The defense does not have to prove a case; they just have to poke holes. So the defense generally, if they put on witnesses, defense attorneys don't always put on witnesses, but if they put on witnesses, they tend to have far fewer than the prosecution who has to prove the entire case. So, wow. Oh, I wonder what happened over on Court TV for them to disable their chat. Maybe Runkle will tell me later because I know sometimes he's in that chat. I imagine the state's not going to have any rebuttal witnesses given that. So we're almost done, y'all. Look at us on day 9 of trial. Things have turned around. We had a code red. We've had some inappropriate weapon handling in court. I'm going to try to do a summary, but I don't really know what the defense has proved today. We did get a pretty good expert roasting on cross-examination. So I'm going to do a summary. We're going to go to questions, and then and then we're going to take a break for the day. I've still got to record a podcast for the week. So y'all are going to take a break. I'm not going to take a break. I still have stuff to do. Today was a strange one, you guys. Today was a strange day in court. Let's see how we can summarize it, because I'm still a little flabbergasted. We are at the end of day 9 of the State versus Hannah Gutierrez read, The Armor on the Set of Rust. The judge, as she was dismissing the jury for the day, indicated that tomorrow, day 10, Wednesday, March 6th, will be closing arguments in the morning. It looks like the defense just has one more witness, which means the defendant is not likely to testify. Those things can change contemporaneously, but it seems that at this moment, the defense is not planning on calling the defendant. I think that's a good idea. This afternoon, we resumed with the cross-examination of one of the defense experts. Which one was he? Scott Elliott, the defense expert in police procedure and investigation. And the prosecutor lit into him on cross-examination in what I thought was one of the better cross-examinations in this trial. It was well organized, and she scored a lot of points. The prosecutor basically shut the door on Seth Kinney being the problem using the defense expert. The defense expert ended up backed into a corner where he had to agree that, yeah, at some point the investigation into one person does have to stop when no more evidence is turned up. And that's what happened with Seth Kinney. So the cross really undermined much of what that expert had said about whether this investigation wasn't ideal. What I came away with from that witness is it would have been great if law enforcement could have done things better. It would have been great if they had had more people. It would have been great in hindsight if they had changed some things. But at the end of the day, it didn't really impact the investigation because we know who loaded the gun. We know where the rounds came from that were loaded into the gun, and we know who pulled the trigger. And those things do not change. Then we got to the defense's next expert, who is a banker by trade, but a war reenactor and NRA weapons instructor by hobby, who is familiar with both replica and regular firearms, who was qualified as an expert in court for the first time, who then brought demonstrative weapons into court and did not render them safe in front of the jury. And then as he went to render it safe, pointed it towards where the bench was, to which the deputy standing next to him reached over and pointed the muzzle of the gun down. It was the most wild beginning of an examination that I have seen the expert, in my opinion, kind of undercut his expertise in weapons handling by getting yelled at by the judge for his pulling a weapon out of the bag and holding it up in court like this without rendering it safe in front of anyone. So the judge kind of lost her mind on him. Then the prosecutor lost her mind on him during cross-examination. And the entire point of his testimony was, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm still buffering. I don't know what the point of his testimony was. I think it was to talk about hand loading rounds and that you whack an inertia puller on the table to start to hand load rounds. I think maybe that was the point. I don't know why he even brought demonstrative weapons into court, because he only used them to show the half cock and quarter cock position and like easing the hammer back down, but they didn't wrap any of that up with testimony. It seemed like a pointless witness that after his demonstration of weapons handling in court, everyone was so stressed and distracted that even if he had had a point, it would have been lost. I think it was a complete waste of a witness for the defense entirely. Absolutely entirely. And that was the end of the day. of day 9. What a wild afternoon in court, but that's why we're at Code Red, because wow. Wow today. Let's get to your questions. I double clicked that inappropriately. I saw a great question in the chat and then it jumped because there are like 16,000 of you here. Don't forget to do the YouTube things, like subscribe so I can tell my 12-year-old that I'm actually a real YouTuber. And don't forget to download the app. So especially when we go into jury watch, you do not miss when I go live if we hear there's going to be a verdict in this case, because I do not just stream the entire jury watch. I will go live when we have a verdict coming in. So with that, lawnerdapp.com. But the question I saw was, a juror said they needed to be done by the 8th. Could there be an argument that somehow that's rushing the case? No, because truly, if there was an issue with a juror needing to be off by the 8th, and they said they'd be done by the 8th, they have 4 alternates. They would dismiss the juror and seat an alternate, and that would be fine. So no, it wouldn't really rush the case. Captain Wee the Barmy, good to see you in chat. Wasn't there supposed to be emails from Hannah Gutierrez about needing more armor days? Yep, they never put them into evidence. We've heard about them from multiple experts, but I've never seen them entered into evidence unless they were in one of those rounds of stuff that got entered into evidence. So Hannah looked kind of appalled at her expert this afternoon. Julie, DNA consulting detective, said, I'd like to know if any in the gallery gasped when the gun swinging was happening. Maybe we will hear it from one of the reporters that is in court. No, this trial can't end. What will I do without my daily EDB? Lori, we will have to talk about post-trial and get to it, because do you know what I'm doing post-trial? Spring break with my children. Jenny said, is there anything that Hannah can use so far for appeal? Jenny, I've seen a lot of varieties of this question. Like, are these attorneys ineffective? Sometimes they might seem inefficient, but in the legal standard of ineffective, no, we are definitely not there. These attorneys have a strategy. They're also limited by what they have to work with. The defense has said in motion practice that they don't have the money the state has. Obviously, they don't. The state was just like, we would like more money. And then they took more money from the legislature and were like, we have money. The defense and the defendant have to figure that out themselves. They have to pay for their experts. It's not the taxpayer footing their bill. And at the end of the day, in those motion arguments, the prosecutor said she could have had a public defender and then the state would have paid for her experts, but she didn't. She chose to hire private counsel. That's on her. So that's not our problem. And they might not have, they just might not have the money for different experts. It just depends. Miss Tunisia asked if I binged. We did bing at 146, didn't we? We should probably celebrate that real quick before we get into the rest of the questions. I don't know where we are. We're moving towards 747. So, who knows? Maybe 750 by the end of trial. I feel like that's a reach, but sometimes you just got to reach for the stars. Let's go. Oh, it binged. Move your head. Ah! This is a great question. Wait, Mia, this is the wrong question. I don't know, because I don't know who that person is. Original E said, are some of the struggles that defense has had with cross-examinations due to Hannah firing bullion on day 2 of trial? It's possible. It's very, very, very possible. It's very possible that some of this is because they switched up their legal team on like day 2 or 3 of trial, because it's wild that happened. I made 30 EDB themed clickable bingo cards. Let me know if you'd like to run a bingo game. We might run a bingo game, probably not during this trial. I know we joke about the bingo cards, but when we're dealing with an involuntary manslaughter, I definitely don't want to actually play bingo games. But we'll have to do bingo for a stream when we're covering documents and stuff. Importance of jury selection. Labor workers are going to find that the OSHA testimony convincing. I think the OSHA testimony can help. I just don't know if it's going to move the needle enough. Kim R said, if I'm a juror, despite safety issues on set, I can't forget the videos of how careless and reckless Hannah Gutierrez was with the guns being waved around and pointed improperly, even by Hannah Gutierrez. She was not attempting to behave professionally. And I wonder if they're going to play some of her interviews tomorrow. Some of the key moments in her interviews are, I wish I would have checked them more. Safety issues can happen on set. It's my responsibility. She said it in her interview. It's my responsibility to make sure that those things don't happen. So we have these moments in her interview where she is accepting responsibility for the safety of the weapons on set over and over and over again. And I hope they clip those out and play them during the closing. And then the defense needs to really factor in on the fact that this set was so unsafe, she could not do her job, and that she was raising the red flag and could not do her job. We'll see. Jana said, I also think the tampering charge is bogus because 2 people left her room before Soup Lady could have been in theirs. I don't like the tampering charge at all. I really don't. Caitlin, it's good to see you in the chat. Saw you in Vegas last week. You were so sweet and kind. Thank you so much. Tagged you in photos on X of my big sis wedding. I told you about it. I can't wait. Thank you for making my week. Good to see you. I hope the wedding was amazing. I will go find those. Christina said, let's try that again. Can you please explain impeachment? I know there is some issue with the super chats. It is a known issue. It is an iOS issue. We are working on it. So impeaching a witness means if a witness says something contradictory, you can impeach that or point out the contradiction, and you can use things they previously said, things they saw or did, but you have to bring up the other thing and be like, oh, so in this interview on this date when you said this, was it wrong then? Is it wrong now? And the defense kept getting to the point where they would impeach somebody and then not having the documents to back it up. It was, so you don't remember saying that? No. Did you do an interview? Yes. But you don't remember saying that? No. And then they would just move on instead of going, but on this day with this transcript, you said this. So they never brought the receipts to finish the impeachment of showing you're saying this now and you contradicted yourself. There were times that they could have, but they didn't. Elizabeth said, hey, what DMB song are you chasing this year? Mine was Two Step last year, and he did not disappoint. I heard Two Step both shows I saw this last week, which I love. I haven't heard Long Black Veil in 100 million years, which would be great. I have not heard the Stone live in way too long. I always love Watchtower, always. So, because Stefan. And that's kind of at the top of my list because he played Last Stop at the first song on the tour for 2024 in Vegas. So that, and anytime I hear Halloween live is a fantastic fucking day. I've heard Third Verse Gray Street a bunch of times now, and I'm like, oh, we got more Gray Street. We got some Don't Drink the Water. There were some good set lists this last weekend. Cantry said, fresh out of my endoscopy, but managed to catch the end of today's streams. I have so many questions. You are not alone. I have so many questions. Thanks for the memories. Well, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay up and make some memories with me, friends, even though it's only 5 p.m. and time to grab a drink. Thanks, EDB and the Law Nerds, for keeping me company while I recover from pneumonia. Recover well, Lady in Pictures. I know a number of you in the chat are like, I am sick. Brooklyn Janet, can the jury find Hannah guilty but lower her sentence? No. The jury can find her guilty. The judge gets to sentence her. So the judge gets to sentence her. I saw the question, will the Tati lawsuit in Vegas be streamed? Nobody is streaming it. I don't think there's cameras in the courtrooms. So I need to actually check in and find out. They should be underway. I need to check in and look and see what's going on. I did not do a meetup when I was in Vegas. It was a very quick trip. I did run into law nerds just being around. Do you know Dave is a producer on an upcoming movie? Didn't he say he was retired? Question, how many DMB shows have you been to? Like 62 or 63, I think, after this weekend. So in that realm. Like in the realm where if you are a casual music fan, you think it's psychotic. But if you're a Dave music fan, you're like, oh, okay, so you're kind of one of us. I know people who've been to hundreds of shows, like hundreds and hundreds of shows. So I think they meant Dave Matthews is. I was thinking about Dave Halls. I'm glad if Dave Matthews is a producer, that's delightful. Totally different thing. Totally different thing. Question, can Hannah appeal based on malpractice by her attorneys who were actually working for the prosecutor? Her attorneys are not actually working for the prosecutor. I haven't seen anything where I would do that. This isn't delightful. This hasn't been great. But no, I don't think we're at an IAC. I don't at all. I think they're working with what they've got. How long will closing take? Less than a day. They should only take a few hours. Because remember, the prosecution closes, then the defense, then the prosecution. If you are clear about your theory of a case, you do not need to close for forever. You need to hit the highlights and tell the jury how to reach their decision. Like, this is the charge, and these are the things you have to find. You have to explain the jury selection to them. But it shouldn't take forever. What's your guess for deliberation? I want to hear the closings first. Verdict by closing time on Friday, probably. I imagine they'll come back pretty quickly. I've only seen Dave like 12 times, and I thought that was a lot. Definitely not a lot in the Dave world, a lot in the other worlds. Loch Nessie gets it. Loch Nessie's like, I'm at 111. And when you're at 111, are you tempted not to go anymore? I have a friend that just did his 500th Dave show. Wait, was he in Vegas? Because there was a guy in Vegas that was like, that everybody was talking about. They're like, no, it's Jude's like 500th show. So yeah, yes. Everybody was talking about it. EDB, please stop with the saying, oh my God. Christy, no, I interchange oh my God and what the fuck synonymously. EDB, I went to see Dave Matthews Band in middle school. I went for Macy Gray, but she was drunk AF. I left as a new DMB fan. Was it at Dodger Stadium? Because I think Dave played with Macy Gray at the Dodger Stadium show that I was at. Just a random question. Let's see. I saw a chat from Runkle and then I absolutely lost it. Wait, where did it go? Runkle said, I'm so glad they're wrapping early because I'm traveling on the 7th. Runkle, that's fantastic. You'll be able to close tomorrow. See, the travel schedules will work out. The travel schedules will work out. Mike said it was not a real gun. It was a prop gun. ... As a juror, can I walk out if I'm scared of a witness pointing the gun at judges and jurors? I think you would bring that concern to the bailiff. Truly. I think you would be like, excuse me, no. Michelle M., great question. Are there lesser included or is this an all or nothing? There are not lesser included. This is a involuntary manslaughter on 2 different theories and then the tampering, but there are no lesser included. Not inferring anything, but I'm autistic and sound angry and confrontational, just like the DA does when I'm trying to be serious or engrossed in the convo. Just food for thought. Christopher, I think it's always a good reminder that people's demeanors sometimes are just their demeanors, and sometimes it's strategic. This is generally her demeanor, and I think that is important. But it is her demeanor. Question, does the prosecution not get rebuttal witnesses? The prosecution might not want to bring rebuttal witnesses. I don't think they need rebuttal witnesses. I don't think they even give these witnesses the credence of bringing rebuttal witnesses because what would you rebut? Like, I think you just do the cross-examination and let it speak for itself. Blake said, thanks for recommending StreamYard. So easy to use. Isn't it great? I love StreamYard so much. I love StreamYard so much. And I'm sorry for the loss of a beloved paw nerd. It is a very, very difficult thing. What is your new Starbucks order since the pumpkin spice cold brew is out of season? I have been doing the chocolate peppermint cold foam cold brew, and I quite like it. I will eventually end with the chocolate peppermint, but for now it's great. Shiraz and Beth, thank you both for the gifted memberships. Adina said, what if a witness is designated as an expert, but the other party objects? Can they give testimony as a non-expert? What if they've watched the trial? So they could be not designated and then not called. They could be not designated and then not able to give their opinion. But the process we saw in Depp Heard with Attorney Dennison, he would ask to voir dire the expert and would get into the expert's qualification more and then let the judge make the decision. Generally, well, no, every time in Depp Heard, the person was designated an expert, but the other side can object and ask to voir dire and get into their expertise, and then the judge gets to call it. Happy at Heart said, just jumping in, did I miss anything spicy? The afternoon was a little wild. Yeah. Kate said, when I was in Hampton a few months ago, I saw 2 guys going after wild boars on the side of the road, the South Carolina of it all. When the trials interweave, I didn't think we would get to a 300 blackout in this trial, and I definitely didn't think we would get to hunting wild boar, but here we are. Here we are. Steph said, had surgery today and woke up to this madness. Steph, this is not a real trial. And this might be a painkiller hallucination. It's just there's like 20,000 of us experiencing all at once. The Great Big Geek said, did I miss when they had to throw those charges out arguments? Also, I screen recorded this super chat to show how wonky it is, and we'll send it on Instagram. Thank you, The Great Big Geek. Yes, I've let the people I know at YouTube know. I've made them aware. They know. No, those weren't done in front of the cameras. I meant to say in front of the jury. This judge has ruled that the only thing that can be streamed is the things that take place in front of the jury. And so because those arguments happen outside the presence of the jury, this all happened outside the presence of the jury. So that's where we are with that. Personal theory, we're actually living in Runkle's hell. We've all just, I don't know. We've all slipped. This trial is fever dream. It feels unreal, but we haven't covered a live trial together in a minute. And I thought this one would be so interesting. It's definitely had its moments. But imagine when we get to the Baldwin trial, and we're going to be like, remember when this witness said this? And remember when that witness did this? We have such a good base of knowledge going into the other one. Sleepy Vapor question, could the prosecutors maybe have not objected against him because they knew what a shit show this would be? I don't think they could have anticipated this. But yes, it's possible. But I don't think they could have anticipated. Oh, Runkle, I'm sorry I missed your super chat earlier, friend. If I called an expert for gun safety and he pointed the gun at the judge, I would be very inclined to say, no questions for this witness, Your Honor. Yes. Yes. They should have had Runkle. No, he's not using guns. Shit show. This was wild. Nicholas said, I'm pissed prosecution didn't voir dire him. I am too. The defense hasn't assisted the prosecution this well since Terrell Brooks was his own lawyer. The self-own of like, you don't know if it's cocaine, it could be meth, I didn't think it was I thought that was like the moment of where you're like, oh, this isn't a great moment in court. And now we're here. The prosecution was suggesting, oh, hold on. Excuse me. The prosecution was suggesting Hannah converted live to blank using the inertia puller. So the defense is countering that poorly. That's very helpful, but I don't know if we ever know if Hannah got an inertia puller. Did you bring a revolver? Oh yes, it's right here. Slings gun around and points it all over the court. Tina, did you know how accurate that was when you sent that? All over the place. You can buy a set with all the accessories and stuff for a couple $100. If you check Lee Precision Reloader Kit, you'll see it isn't that much. If he was supposed to say it was easy to do, he definitely didn't say that. Elizabeth said, I had to go sit in my car. My mouth got out of hand. Seth did have a month to get rid of stuff. He did. And the defense never really made a huge deal out of it. They tried to, but they didn't. New technique, confuse the jury or bore them. Confusion's good for the defense. You can't really get to a reasonable doubt or beyond a reasonable doubt if you are confusion. So maybe. Gun guy, that was his short version of his background. Imagine the long version. I want nothing. I want nothing more from that witness. I am so done. So done. Is this the same judge for Baldwin's trial? Unless something happens between now and then, it's assigned to the same judge. Yes, though things can happen. T-Bro Drex said ammunition ID by definition includes loaded, reloaded rounds because both individuals loaded and many manufacturers sell loaded, non-loaded branded rounds. P.S. Unloading to make dummies doesn't require all that. Thank you. We did get back to decocking today. Also, please bring back the Cajun. Yeah, bring back the other gun expert. Can we get a demo of how defense lawyers work? You guys are very funny in the chat. I'm going to see if there's a few more questions, and then I'm going to go because I do need to record a podcast tonight. Question, can we please replay the part where he points it at the judge so we can gawk? No, I'm going to leave that to later tonight. Question, do you think you'll cover the Karen Reed case I do think I will cover the Karen Reed case. I know it got put off till April, so I will look at the schedule. But yes, I do think I will be covering the Karen Reed case, but it is 5:21 my time, and I would like to actually be able to sleep tonight and get you a podcast. We've got a lot going on in the Bravo universe. For those of you that are new here, do the YouTube things, of course, but if you want a breakdown of the involuntary manslaughter theories from the prosecution and the charges, that was in the Emily show, not last week, but the week before this trial started. So if that is helpful to you, that is on the channel. It's a shorter episode of the podcast. If you need a quick run through, members, I will put up the info in the member spaces if you are if you want to join the behind the scenes. Real happy Bravo lawsuits. Yes, there are 2 big ones that have been filed that I have not gotten to cover. One between Leah McSweeney, Andy Cohen in the network, and one between Raquel / Rachel, and Tom and Ariana. So we're going to be covering that. But yes, I'll put it up for BTS. I don't want it to conflict with Runkle's stream, so I will put it up there. Do you think Baldwin will request a new judge after watching this? I don't think Baldwin can request a new judge after watching this because that time has passed. This has been assigned to this judge for a while. Weed said Seth threw evidence out theory. Did you see his place? He had pizza boxes older than the beginning of filming. And he said, maybe. I will be surprised if Thel doesn't testify tomorrow, truly. I see you guys asking. I'll be surprised. So chat, bring snacks. Tomorrow is closing arguments. Closing arguments need snacks. Love a closing argument. I will not be giving as much commentary over closing arguments because I really hope that closing arguments will make the cases clear. And they should. The jury should walk back into the jury room with a clearer idea of the case. And that's what I'm hoping for all of us tomorrow, to see them start to tie it back in. So chat, we will be in court tomorrow morning, probably at, what time are they calling the jury back? 8:30. So I will set the stream for 10 Central Time, and we will get into court. We'll zoom that first witness. They'll take a morning break, and then we'll get into closing. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully you're excited to see it. Chat, looks like we've got like one more day of trial. Let's go. Good work, people. That's enough work for this day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering and fast notifications on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com, or search the App Store for Law Nerd. You can also follow me around social media, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Emily Show, with quick bits dropping every Monday, summarizing everything I do here on the live streams on Tuesday and Thursday for when you just have time for the quick bits. Thanks for being a Law Nerd.